Hey, this is Nige Rockett from Onslaught, and we'll see you at the Tampa Morgue.
Behold, I am the Lord Satan, the Grand Master of Hell. I have come to bear witness to the reformation of those who disbelieve. Succumb or feel my wrath as I release this power from hell.
What's up? This is Tony, and you're listening to the Tampa Morgue, Season 2, Episode 101. And as always, from his studio deep in Tampa Bay, Florida, I'm joined by Mr. Ed Webb. What's up, Webb?
Mr. Anderson, what the fuck is going on, brother?
Yeah, we've been having some technical difficulties behind the scenes. We did open up with Onslaught, Damnation, Onslaught Power from Hell, from the Power from Hell record that came out in 1985 on Children of the Revolution Records out of Bristol. And we'll be joined by Nige Rockett tonight in about 20 minutes. Ed, what's going on over there in Tampa?
Well, I mean, we're trying to get a show done. That's first and foremost. And that seems to be, I don't know if it's the sickness that we're both having here, even though we're like 42,000 miles away from each other. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing much. My wife's car battery's dead. Um, I've been to the clinic again for like the 2000th time yesterday. Hopefully we fix this. Fixes,
It's only
Uh,
Monday. It's
yeah,
only Monday,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
sometimes you realize that some things go super smooth and then they don't. It just is what it is.
yeah, me and Ed have been working on the show today. We've had a few technical difficulties, so we're hoping that this time everything works out. But we're used to this on the show. This is the stuff you guys don't have to see that we deal with all the time. But let's hope. That's all we can
Comedy
do.
gold. Comedy
Yeah,
gold.
yeah. It's comedy gold. And like I said, we have some, we got some stuff going on tonight. We're gonna have, like we said, Nige come on. Ed, we had Terry Butler on last week, which was a great episode. Whoever didn't hear it, Terry was on for about almost 3 hours. Next day, he's in Austria.
Yeah, that's crazy. Saw the shows, look great, packed, packed. Those are the shows. Oh, wondering why we're not playing those shows, but hey, what do I know? I'm just a jabron sitting here doing a
Rainy and
podcast.
muddy though in Vakken, right?
Yeah, it seems to be a trend because when we played, it was very rainy and wet, muddy, and lots of lakes that people were sliding and slipping and sliding in while a dude's pissing uh, in the puddle as the guy goes shooting by. And that was new. I remember watching that. Me and Rick stood there and we're like, well, you don't see that every day. People swimming in piss. But yeah, it's Vakken. If you've never been there, there's no way to describe it. It's such a giant thing. It's like probably next to the old days, when they had the big giant shows, the 100,000 people. This is probably the new era of that. Like the Dynamo Fest back in the day when you would see like Venom and all them play these giant shows. The crowds are just on the main stage are fucking ridiculous. When you look out, it just goes on forever. But I don't understand people sleeping in water. I just we kind of went through their camp and these tents were underwater by a foot, like underwater, and they were just like, where are we supposed to go? This is where we're staying. And I'm like, how do you sleep in water without
And you had a
drowning?
good
Like,
Ralph Santola story, didn't you, from that event?
yeah, actually we did. I wish we would have talked about it with Terry. I thought about it after, but there was a bar, and I'm assuming it's still there, that a lot of people congregated in, like band members and stuff. It wasn't really where people were because I think you had to be backstage to get there. Um, I don't remember for sure, but I didn't see a whole lot of just people in there. It looked like a lot of band dudes. But um, while me and Terry were sitting there, and there was this little plank of wood that they kind of gave you to maneuver to get in, and then it wound up sinking. So we were kind of stuck because otherwise you'd be a foot in muck. Your shoe would get stuck. We watched a dude pull his shoe out, and he had to reach in about a foot to get his shoe out. I was like, "Fuck that, man!" I had brand new shoes. I was pissed,
And that
but
mud, who knows what's in that? Like you said, some guys
it's
pissing
just
in it.
muck. It's like literally like the old school New Jersey muck. Like when we would go, like it stinks. It's gross. But yeah, we were sitting at the bar, and I remember I looked over and there was this dude that looked like Greystoke, like Tarzan, head to toe mud, long hair, like dirty, just looked like Tarzan from the movie, like literally up against this wall. And I grabbed Terry because I thought it was Ralph. And sure enough, he said, "That's Ralph." And then when we looked back, he was gone. Like like the movies. Like he's there and he's gone. And 2 minutes later, he was at the table and he was head to toe mud. Said he was out there. He got fucking fell in the mud and he didn't care. He was living out there with a girl, so that's why he was there. They weren't playing. He wasn't playing or anything. But nicest dude. Was crazy to see him out there because I hadn't seen him in years, and obviously he's gone. You know, rest in peace. But he was always nice to me. It was fucking great seeing him. Him and Terry were chopping it up pretty good because obviously he was an obituary. But yeah, it was just a visual. I wish I took a picture of it. I have it somewhere. One day I'll find it and post it because nobody would believe me if you didn't see it. But that's probably why he ran because I took the picture. But I'm gonna find that fucker and post it because it was awesome. But yeah, he's a good dude. I know you know him.
And last time I saw Ralph was probably the Cuban Club when we played Florida Metal Fest.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I might have saw him after that at this dude Damian Gordon's house because he was staying there. They were working on some project, and I walked in, and he was always nice and cordial. Always said every band I always played in, he said was fucking nice. So yeah, good dude. I wish I could pick about 40 other people that I would trade for him. That's for sure.
Ralph. Again, anybody hasn't heard the Terry Butler interview, it was last week, 100 the number 100. So you can go back and hear that. Next week, we have Marcus from Disaster. He's been doing that for around 37 years. Then we have Alessio from Violenter out of Italy. He was also in Hobbs of Death. He played with Hobbs of Death when we played with him, Ed, over at the Brass Mug. Probably
Swarmfest.
2016, I think it was. Yeah, it's we'll have him on from Violenter on in 2 weeks. So next week will be Marcus from Disaster. We have that coming up. And Ed, I have shows. I have the musicians who passed away. We have releases and all that stuff. And first, we're gonna play a promo from Dave Allison, aka Death Metal Dave, about the Metal Museum. Then we have Nige Rockett from Onslaught coming on. They just put out a record on Raining Phoenix Music in May. It has some, re-recordings of old material. It has some cover songs. They redid Holiday in Cambodia from the Dead Kennedys. They Emotional Blackmail from the UK Subs. Give Me Fire from GBH. War Pigs from Sabbath. War Dance from Killing Joke. They did a Priest cover of Free Will Burning. So we're gonna have Nige on. We'll talk to him about the history of Onslaught and stuff before they're about to go on tour. And Ed, is there anything else before we? We'll do the Dave Allison promo, and then we'll go from there. What do you think?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Cool, let's do it. It's going to be a busy night on the Tampa Morgue. We'll play the promo from Dave Allison, and we'll be back with releases, the musicians who passed away, and then we'll have Nige Rockett on. Be back after this promo.
What's up, Tampa Morgue listeners? This is Death Metal Dave from the Tampa Bay Museum of Metal. And I'd like to ask you to join us on February the 7th at Magnanimous Brewery, Seminole Heights, where we're going to have a killer display of Florida metal history. Backdrops, guitars, drums, clothing, you name it, we're going to have it. And it's pretty freaking cool, man. Come out and support the metal and drink our Tampa Bay Museum of Metal beer. And always listen to Tampa Morgue with Tony and Ed. It's just Death Metal Dave. In your face.
And that was the one and only Dave Allison, aka Death Metal Dave from the Tampa Bay Museum of Metal. If you haven't checked out the site yet, you can find it at www.tampabaymuseumofmetal.com. And before I read the upcoming releases, we always want to say thanks to all of our listeners from around the world. This is episode 101. So if you haven't heard the show before, this is your first time here, there's 100 back episodes. You can go back and find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts at. You'll find deep dive interviews with Jeff Manis from Venom, King Fally from Deceased, Dawn of the Dead from Nunslaughter, Satanic Threat, Crusher from Morgul out of Finland, Chris Reifer from Autopsy, Eat My Fuck, Abscess, Snowy Shaw, King Diamond, Merciful Fate, Notre Dame, interviews with Raven, Morbid Saint, Club and Hoof, Ern from Finland, Hooded Menace, Hell Witch, Arcgoat, Perdition Temple, God Dethroned, and the list goes on. So you can find yeah, you can find the old episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also keep up to date with us on the Instagram page. That's probably the most updated thing for the show. You can also email us at thetampamorgue@gmail.com. We always appreciate the messages. And yeah, you can check out, we have a Facebook page too. Facebook for us, obviously, we don't do much on there, but we do have one, so you can check that out. We're going to mention the musicians who passed away this week, which is something we do on the show every episode. So I do have a list right here that was sent to us. So I'm going to read this and then I'll get to the releases and then Ed will do shows and stuff. Peter Gray Jackson, 40 years old, American drummer from Kill Whitney Dead out of North Carolina, and The Demonstration out of North Carolina. He was 40 years old. MZ, an Italian guitarist, played in Common Grave, a black metal band from Italy. Filaritos Phillies Lagitas, a Greek drummer, 53 years old. He played with Exhumanation. Yodin Manato, a bassist from the Philippines. He played with Tabero, which was a grindcore band from the Philippines. Kadek Ware, Indonesian guitar player, passed away at 51 years old. He played with Infernal Desire and Triple Six. Paul Day, 69 years old, vocalist from the UK. He was the first singer actually of Iron Maiden. So he was let go in 1976. He was there from 75 to 76. Also sang for Andy Scott Sweet, Buffalo Crows, Crimson Lake, Gringos, More, and Wildfire. He had never sang before, I was reading. He basically met Steve, got invited to a tryout. I think he actually went to the tryout with their light guy, Dave Lights Beasley, who also designed the first Iron Maiden Eddie for the stage. So, yeah. Day passed away at 69. Eric Wonder, 42-year-old drummer, vocalist, bass, guitar player from Colorado, passed away from heart failure. He was with Cobalt, Constructs, and then Man's Gin. He passed away at 42. Davilish Herrero Marquez, Bolivian guitar player. Amdus Sikas, Pentacorium, Dreams, and Solemn. Again, if I'm pronouncing any of these wrong, I apologize. He passed away. Robert Aiden, Swedish vocalist and drummer, passed 44 years old. Played with Dethroned and Shining out of Sweden. You see here, Ova Regular, a German guitar player and vocalist, played with More Than Fear, also played with a band called Needle. David Roach, 59 years old, vocalist of Hollywood's Junkyard, passed away of cancer. And those are the musicians who passed away this week that I have. And what I'll do too, Ed, is I'm going to read the releases and then we'll go over the shows and then we'll get to Nige. So I'm going to start here. Aberration, a death metal band out of Norway. Abhorrent Entities from Invictus Productions out of Ireland. Aberration formed in 2020. First demo came out in 2021 titled After Winter Comes War. I believe this will have some demos on there from the first debut. Full length, features members past and present of High Priest of Saturn, Condor, and Obliteration. And actually, I've talked to, hopefully we'll get Mangus on here. I've talked to Mangus about coming on here. So this one's available August 7th. Thorn out of Phoenix, Arizona. Nebulous Womb of Eternity on Transcending Obscurity Records out of India. They're a death doom metal band. Thorn was formed in 2020. First release was a 7-track EP in 2020 titled The End Composing Nothing. Thorn has released 1 EP, 4 splits, and this will be the band's 4th full length. This will be available August 8th on Transcending Obscurity Records. Phantom Fire out of Norway, speed black metal band. It's a self-titled one they're doing here. Edge Circle Productions out of Norway. First release was an EP in 2021 titled Return of the Goat. The self-titled album will be Phantom Fire's 3rd full length, has 10 tracks, and will be available August 8th on Edge Circle Productions. Assassin out of Germany, thrash metal band. Outer Space Death is the name of this comp. This is a compilation on High Roller Records. Assassin formed in 1985. Debut was the 7-track single-sided Holy Terror demo in 1985. Assassin put out 5 demos, 6 full lengths, 1 box set, and this will be the band's 3rd comp. 17 tracks, some material from rehearsals in 87, and also some live tracks from 87. This will be available August 8th on High Roller Records. Sermon out of Philadelphia, doom metal band. Saturn Ian, Appendices EP. Dark Descent Records out of Colorado. Crip Sermon formed in 2013. First demo came out in 2013 also. Crip Sermon has released 3 full lengths, and this will be the band's first EP. 4 tracks will be featured on this, including a Mayhem cover. August 8th, that comes out on Dark Descent Records. Warhammer 666 Archaic Brutality Volume 1. It's an independent release. This was an EP. Warhammer 666 is formed in 2024, has put out 2 full lengths, 2 demos, and this will be the band's 4th EP. Originally from Australia, now they're in the Garden State. Many memories of growing up in Toms River, New Jersey for me, actually. I've heard Warhammer 666 be discussed on Revik's channel, Revik from Mordant Red. So I am familiar with this band. So this comes out August 8th. It's only 25 copies, I guess. So it's like I said, it's independently released, and this will be put out on red cassette. And let me see here. We're going to stay in New Jersey, actually. Paralysis, Long Valley, New Jersey. Thrash crossover band. Spiral of Suffering is the name of this. And it's an independent release also. Paralysis, formed in 2010. Debut release was the No Turning Back EP in 2014. Spiral of Suffering will be the band's 3rd full length and a follow-up to a 2022 album, Mob Justice. This band features members past and present of World Eater, Slick Wicked, Sacred Wrath, and this will come out on August 8th. Botched Execution out of Los Angeles, California. Thrash punk metal band. Dismembered and Eaten by Rats is the name of this one. It's an EP, independent release. Botched Execution formed in 2022. First release was the band's 2023 demo, Scorched. Dismembered and Eaten by Rats has 4 tracks. Will be out on August 11th. And last one, Rehabilitator out of Ukraine. Fucking Thrasher is the name of this one on Extreme Music out of Spain. Slava Ukraini, of course. Rehabilitator formed in 2010. First release was in 2012. A full length titled Global Degeneration. Fucking Thrasher will be the band's 4th full length. They also put out a EP and a demo. Rehabilitator features members past and present of Zombie Attack, Homindius, Metal Disease, and War. This will be out on August 12th. And that was our releases. And Ed, I had to mention something to you because I figure you grew up same time period as I did. And this person who passed away, I just saw it this morning actually, was someone that we grew up watching, Lonnie Anderson, 79 years old.
Yep. WKRP in Cincinnati, man.
Stroker Ace with Burt Reynolds, right? The Gambler. The original one went from 78 to 82. I was watching something when she passed away this morning about this. They did like 90 episodes. And I remember that as a kid. Like, how do you not like Johnny
show.
Fever, Venus Flytrap?
That gave you the kind of the idea of, they kind of really over exaggerated what it was like to be a radio disc jockey. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like the guy we watch here, or, Howard Stern or Bubba the Love Sponge. When you watch him, over the years, now that you see him live, you're like, it's nothing like that. I mean, it's shocking, when you do stupid shit, but
back in the day, it was groundbreaking, right? Yeah, you watch Howard Stern do his like Homeless Squares and the Kabasi Queen.
Was that on E?
Well, that was the second. It was on E eventually, but before that, it was on local channels over in Jersey,
New York. I knew it was a New York channel. I can't remember if what it was they did, but I mean, it was a great show, and she was hot.
Yeah, she was for us as a kid. 79.
Wow.
I mean,
they're dropping like flies, brother.
Yes, as we notice even from when we do this show.
Yeah, but, I mean, the whole Ozzy funeral was fucking sad. Watching them get out of the car there at the makeshift. Dude,
that was that sucks, man.
Seeing Sharon just it's to me, people just don't get. I see some people that were talking shit online about Ozzy, and it's like, yeah, we don't know him, but he was a major part of people's lives. He probably saved people's lives through his music. You don't realize people wanted to kill themselves, and he saved their fucking lives, because that's what music does.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to tell you, man, but that's the fact. There's how many times have you heard somebody say, "Man, your music saved my life"?
Yeah, and I believe I said it last week. Ozzy's one of those guys I never stopped listening to. Like, just didn't come out. He was one of those people that was like growing up, he's been a staple, like the Dios and stuff. They were people that I grew up listening to and continue to listen to. And Ozzy, yeah.
I think it's a lot, like, to me, it's the Judas Priests, the Iron Maidens, when they put something out, because they were from our beginnings, you will listen to it because that's who they are. Like, to me, I think,
Takes you back too, man.
Between Rob Halford and Ozzy, I think those two today, not slagging on Bruce Dickinson and all, but if you think about Rob Halford, like, I see people putting videos up of when they played those early fests. We're talking the Sin After Sin. You know what I mean? Those old records. Yeah, I don't know, man. When I see those videos and I hear that voice, like Ozzy, when you hear that voice, it does something to you. It brings you to a place that you're like, fuck. It's killer. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah,
Those are bands that I will always listen to.
Yeah. And, even though you knew Ozzy was older, you knew he lived his life. It was a fucking total bummer, man. And it still sucks to realize that he's gone, because you kind of always felt like, even though you know how life goes one day and you know how the story always ends, you
Right.
kind of just, when you hear it's Ozzy, you're like, no. But yeah,
It was funny. We were driving down the road, and on, I guess it was Hair Nation. It had to have been. Ultimate Sin came on, and just that first riff. I know it's Zakk Wylde era, but that riff. Even my wife was enthralled in her game. Looked up and looked at the radio, because when you hear Ozzy's voice, she looked up and was like, "Oh, that's Ozzy," and I was like, "Yeah, it's Ozzy. You better listen. That's all you. That's where you're going to hear him. That's it. Because there ain't no new music coming anymore. That's it. Unless they got something in the vault we don't know about. That's it.
It's crazy to think that, right? And, Ozzy's, he's never, he's
Just
never
imagine
gone, but he's,
all those people that paid all that money to that show, even that paid for the live stream, the Joe Who bars, and all the people that sat there for 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it was, not even realizing 2 weeks later that it was over.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. And we talked about it on the last episode. Whoever didn't listen to hear the Terry Butler episode, of course, we talked about the Ozzy passing and stuff. And we'll continue to talk about it.
Check that episode out. There's some juicy stuff in that fucking episode.
Yeah, it's a great episode. And so, Ed, I guess let's do shows, and then we can get Nige on here. I do want to thank Curtis Dewar, who hooked me up with Nige from Onslaught. I've dealt with Curtis before. He's helped out the show before, setting up some stuff for us. So always like dealing with him. And I don't know what shows you have. I'll just start out with the ones that me and you both, obviously we talked about this before we signed on today. It'll start off at August 7th at the Conduit. I Hate God, Crowbar, Hollow's Leg. That's 6700 Alamo Ave, Winter Park, Florida, 18 and up. And then they're going to be playing Friday, August 8th at the Brass Mug. Crowbar, I Hate God, Swamp Tooth, and Cold Steel. It's $30 pre. $35 day of the show. Doors at 6:30. You can also get tickets at brassmug.ticketbud.com. Again, that's Friday the 8th. And they'll also be playing on the same tour package. Crowbar and I Hate God will also be playing on Saturday, August 9th in West Palm Beach at Respectable Street. And that is August 9th. And then what else do I have here? August 9th wise, I also have at the Brass Mug. Velvet Sky, The Dude, Silver Bullet Smile, and 12 Gauge Confessional. That's all ages show. Doors at $12. And that's at the Brass Mug, 1450 Skipper Road. And then August 16th at the Conduit, Gravesend out of New York, Primitive Warfare, and Aura Subversa. 7 p.m., 18 and up. That's August 16th at the Conduit. August 17th, which I would definitely go to the show, actually, if I was back at home right now. Joey Belladonna, tribute to Dio, Sabbath, and Rainbow at the Conduit. Doors at 7. Tickets will be $33 with all the fees and stuff when I looked at it. 18 and up, that show is. And Ed, that's all I have for shows. I don't, there's some more stuff coming up next week, but we're going to be on here next week anyway with Marcus from Disaster, so we can announce those then. I don't know if you have anything.
Nope. The only one I had was in September, which is the Dark Angel.
I saw that too,
which
yeah.
is going to look pretty good because it's got Sacred Reich. Hyrax, and was it Void? I can't remember the other.
Yeah,
name.
I think it is Void.
Yeah, and September 16th at the Orpheum. You know, I don't venture out very much, but I will be at that show because I am a huge Sacred Reich fan, always have been. Phil's one of the reasons I started playing bass and singing. From
Hopefully, we'll get him on the show one day.
That Ignorance record is still to this day. Just listen to the lyrics and you'll get it.
Yeah. And, so I do want to mention too, which I almost forgot to mention on the beginning of the show, Phil from Malevolent Creation is recovering after 4 weeks. He'll says he's going to be back on tour with Christine in September and then back for the North American tour in October. So we're glad to see that he's doing well.
Yep, he's supposed to be either today or tomorrow to being released and flying home.
Yeah,
which
bacterial pneumonia, right?
Yeah, man. Well, it's probably worse than pneumonia. I don't know how much worse, but from what I understood, his lungs were filled with blood, and the only way to release that is like ridiculously potent antibiotics. Yesterday I had when I went to the clinic, I had a bacterial thing going on in my sinuses. So that's why I'm on a new shot that takes care of the nasal polyps, but apparently it doesn't have anything to do with bacterial infections. So that's why no matter what I did, I wasn't getting better. I'm wondering why this fucking shot that cost $3,000 a shot isn't working. And that's why. She said, oh, dude, you're fucked up. You got a bacterial infection. So she gave me the shit within 24 hours. Like yesterday, if you wanted to do this show yesterday, like we already talked about, you wouldn't hear me talking. I would have been coughing the whole time. It was brutal.
Like a mime.
It's amazing what 24 hours can change with ridiculous, stupid medicine, but it's, I'm guessing glad it's here. Otherwise I would be miserable.
Yeah. No, we're glad that Phil is recovering from Malevolent, so that's great news. And Ed, what do you think? Let's get Nige on here from Onslaught. We'll come back at the end of the show and say goodbye to everybody.
I'm ready for Nige. Let's do it.
Okay, this is, let me see. We're going to play some Onslaught. We're going to play Thrash Till The Death from the Force record from 1986 that came out on Under One Flag out of the UK. Then we'll be joined by guitar player Nige Rockett from Onslaught. This is Onslaught with Thrash Till The Death. We'll be back on the Morgue after this. And that was Onslaught with Thrash Till Death from the Force album from 1986. And we are joined by the founder and guitar player, Nige Rockett of Onslaught. How you doing, man?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
Doing good, dude. I have to, before we start talking about your history, I have to ask, man, I know you guys just did a European leg, right, for the 40th anniversary of the Power from Hell album. How did that go?
That was fantastic. Really good. Probably 75% of the shows sold out, which was very cool. And it was my first tour back for 3 years. So good times for myself in particular, but it was a great tour in general for the band.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all that tonight. And I know, you guys played, I think, France, Italy, Poland, Germany, Belgium, Austria on that tour. Like you said, I think there was like 9 shows that sold out. And how, being back on the stage for the first time in 3 years, how, like, did you have that, you've done this a shitload of times, as we're going to talk about tonight. Was there kind of a fear in there at all, or kind of like that stage fright, since it's been so long?
Um, no, not as such. I'm lucky enough never to suffer from nerves or anything like that. Obviously there was a little apprehension, I would say, not nerves, just for the fact that I'm still not 100% fit again. I say I'm only running it like 70%, so I've still got a way to go. And I've still got a few issues which I've got to deal with. So that was my only thinking on stage. I've got a kind of vertigo thing going on where my balance is a little bit dodgy now and again. Um, so that's the only thing that I'm kind of aware of. But now it just didn't seem like I've been away as such. Apart from the fact I can't perform to my maximum what I'd like to do. But yeah,
That's what I was going to ask you, right? Because you can't headbang as much anymore. Obviously, anybody who doesn't know, you had, I think, 2 spinal surgeries.
yeah, I'm completely barred from headbanging from the future. Um, they reckon that was the most likely cause of the top spinal injury. So, and what caused the main damage. So, no more headbanging. It's very difficult not to when you're on stage. I find my head starting to go now and again, and I have to kind of hold back a little bit. But yeah, it's rather annoying, but it's the way things are.
No, it's understandable. And like I said, we'll talk about that tonight too. And I want to start out from the beginning, man. That's how we always kind of do it on the Tampa Morgue. You were born in Bristol,
Yeah,
in UK.
yeah.
And do you remember the first piece of music you heard as a kid, like a young kid, that really caught your attention? Pre-Sex Pistols and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, not that I remember myself, but my mum used to tell me that I was mad into the Kinks, um, which I find kind of cool because the Kinks were like very guitar based band, which is great, and they've been covered by a lot of rock metal bands. So I think that was a kind of cool thing to be picked up on by my parents, and that I liked. They used to say I used to jump around as soon as the Kinks came on the radio or anything like that. So I, that's that's what I would say. The Kinks were my first probably musical influence.
Also, with you, you're a big European football fan. At the age of 10, you started it. You've been involved with it in several different ways. You've played it, you've watched it, and I believe you've managed it also.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was managing football teams for a good 4 or 5 years, I think, and mostly Sunday football. But in my last couple of years, I got involved in quite a high level of amateur football. Um, and that was a kind of a different level to deal with altogether. I mean, you're dealing with much more skilled players, different attitudes, instead of a pub team. But it was cool, and I really enjoyed that period. But the band came back, and I sort of had to step away from the football because it was just too much to try and do both together.
And you're a Bristol City fan?
No, Bristol Ravers,
Ah, okay.
Bristol Ravers, and Chelsea are my teams.
Okay, and, so, like, you did that, and also, your like, music back in the day. Do you remember, I know you were early on, you're into, like, Queen, The Sweet, and stuff like that, T-Rex, but do you remember the first record you actually purchased as a kid?
My mum used to work in Woolworths, um, so um, and I had a job there when I was still at school, just like help me clean up and stuff. So I would get all the records as they came in, just pre-released. So before they were on sale to the general public, which was amazing. But I think the probably actual first record I actually bought with my own money would have been Nevermind the Bollocks, the Sex Pistols. Because my mum used to bring me in loads of records from the store. So they were all kind of free. But I think that was probably the first one when I was 11, 12 that I actually bought with my own money. Record changed my life. Absolutely incredible. And there was nothing like it that had ever came before. So yeah, I just got massively into that whole thing. Parents didn't like it too much, but that's the way it was, and this influenced me ever since.
And what were some of the local stores you were visiting besides Woolworths?
Um, we had a local um, shop that was only several doors down from Woolworths. It was a school friend of mine's mum ran the shop, and she was getting all the early records coming in. I remember when that Sex Pistols album released, she just covered the whole window and the whole door with the album sleeves, and like it was kind of quite outrageous in the UK at the time for that to be done, because of the title of the album. So that was the main one, and we had Virgin Records in Bristol and several other sort of independent record stores. So Bristol was always good for music back at that time, late 70s.
And you mentioned the Sex Pistols. I'd heard like at 12 or 13, you picked up Holiday in the Sun, right? And you picked it up the day it came out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, there was so much hype about the album. Um, a lot of my mates were older guys, so and they'd all been picked up on the news what was going on. Everybody was talking about it. So I thought I got to be part of this and get it first day and see what all the hype's about. So, which I did, got the record, ran, put it on. Holidays in the Sun, first track was like best track ever from the Sex Pistols. Hence we covered that on the latest album because of that reason.
And you mentioned how it changed you, and I've listened to some of the interviews with you, and and it was a big change of your attitude, right? And kind of like a major change for you,
Yeah.
that record.
I mean, no, like I said, no, nothing had come like this before. The whole image and the attitude that went with punk music, uh, being an impressionable young lad, it I picked up on it. And as I said, a lot of my friends were a fair bit older. So everybody was getting into the punk scene massively at that time. Um, it looked cool, it sounded cool. So for an impressionable young kid, it was the way to go for sure.
Do you remember the first gig you actually attended?
It was the Buzzcocks. I was only discussing this yesterday, actually, funnily enough, because we went into a pub in Bristol and there were loads of old posters on the wall, and it was kind of interesting. We got talking about first gigs, but yeah, it was the Buzzcocks in like it was 1977. At a Colston Hall in Bristol.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask you that. Well, because I know you like what we'll talk about. You followed around GBH, Discharge, The Exploited when you were growing up and stuff. You actually followed them around touring and stuff. What were some of the venues you were visiting out as a kid in your area in Bristol?
I mean, the main venues in Bristol was a club called the Granary. It was an old kind of bikers pub club. Two or three stores, I think, really dirty place, black, dark, sticky floors. But anybody had played there. Zeppelin had played there, Motörhead had played there. I think everybody, Thin Lizzy, anybody who was anybody, it came to the Granary in their early days. I think even Queen may have played there. The list was ridiculous when you used to see it on the wall. Who had played there? It was incredible. But just a small, dirty club, like 400 capacity or something like that. But they used to have rock nights every, I think, Friday and Saturday night. So we'd go there every Friday and Saturday. It was a kind of cool place to be. The local sort of Hells Angels and stuff would be there all the time, and it was a good place. It was really really cool. They played great music.
As I mentioned, you were following around GBH, Discharge. You did 3 covers from Discharge, I believe, on the new record.
Yeah.
Um, can you tell us about those times?
I mean, when I left school, like 16, obviously, you've got a lot of freedom, and I said, we had a completely different attitude at that time to many of the other kids. So me and Paul Hill, who formed the band, we used to follow them bands all over the country. Just jump on a train without paying, jump off before you got called, um, and go to these gigs. Just turn up. We got friendly with some of the guys in the band. They'd see us again. They'd always put us on the guest list and stuff when they seen us around because they got to know our faces. Um, it was great. We'd sleep anywhere, shop doorways, skips, doss houses. Kind of dangerous sometimes, but it was a lot of fun. And we did that for around a year, I think. But we had some great times doing that, just basically all over the UK.
Nice. And you first picked up a guitar at 12, and I believe you had like 6 lessons, then you quit till you were 16?
Yeah, yeah. You've done some research, man. That's cool. Yeah, a friend of my dad's. He played guitar. And my older brother had a guitar lying around under the bed. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go when I started to get seriously into music. But all he wanted to teach me was kind of the Beatles stuff, which really wasn't interesting to me in the slightest at that time. I remember the thing he kept drumming into me was playing Day Tripper. Um, but you listen back, and it got boring in the end. He was teaching me too much of that, and completely not what I wanted to learn at all. So it was kind of okay. I'm gonna quit this after about 6 lessons because it was going nowhere. So yeah, I gave up that and just carried on listening to music um, until, again, as I said, we were following all those bands around when I was about 16, and it was okay. Why are we doing this? Because we love it so much, but why don't we form a band ourselves? Which is kind of what we did. But obviously, the only snag was neither of us could play. So it was a kind of a bit of a tricky one there. But fortunately, I don't know if you ever heard of a band called Vice Squad. Um, they were for Bristol punk band, and I went to one of their gigs at the local youth club one night, and got talking to the guitarist after, and it turns out he lived literally 5 minutes walk from my house at the time. So we were talking. I said, Dave, I'd really like to learn some basics of guitar. So he said, come on down. We'll have a coffee, have a chat, and we'll go through some stuff. And which we did. I bought a cheap guitar. And Dave taught me more in the first 2 sessions we had than this guy taught me in 6, because Dave was playing the stuff that I wanted to play. Very helpful, massively helpful. And it set me on my way from there. And once I got to know the basics and hold a tune down, sky was the limit, really. It was just how much time I wanted to put into practice, which was loads. So worked really hard for 2 or 3 years, in particular at the early days, just to get myself up to a real decent standard enough to record things.
And were you, now it may be a different story, but when you're like a teenager, were you into the new wave of British heavy metal at all, or was it just pretty much punk for you?
Pretty much punk, I got to say. Apart from, I mean, Motörhead aren't classed really as new wave of British heavy metal. Massively into Motörhead. Um, as were bands like Discharge and GBH also. So Motörhead influenced them, and they influenced us in turn. But no, not into stuff like Maiden and things like that, really. To be honest.
When did you first meet Jace Paul Hill? Paul, I know you had a long friendship with already, and Steve Grice. When did you guys first decide, hey, we're gonna start jamming?
Me, Paul, and Jace were school friends. We all went to the same school, so we knew each other very well from school. Obviously, we used to hang out together in the youth club and whatever, and get up to all sorts of trouble. And again, that was we'd actually formed another band before Onslaught, slightly before.
Is that Deranged?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and that's what turned into Onslaught. The three of us.
Did you
Um,
guys record any demos with Deranged or no?
no, not as such. No. So I remember I think we only done one gig, maybe, again at the local youth club, and James nearly decapitated somebody. He decided to take cymbals off and launch one of the cymbals across the hall. which was a slightly dubious move. But yeah, we did one, and then I think we kind of morphed into Onslaught from there.
Yeah, who came up with the name Onslaught?
Myself, looking for a new name for the band. Um, the obvious way is to go through the dictionary, which I did. I remember sat there one night for about 4 or 5 hours, just flicking through every page, looking at every word. So you can imagine how long it took me to get to O. It was some time. Then Onslaught, that looks cool. Sounds perfect. And the description for Onslaught was furious attack. So I thought, well, that is absolutely perfect, and there it was.
And then you mentioned the youth center and stuff. Is that where you guys started jamming at?
Yeah. Always at for both bands, it was at the youth center to start with, because they obviously knew us. They would allow us time to do it there, even in when the clubs weren't open. They'd allow us in to rehearse and stuff. So it was a cheap option. Um, yeah, and it was cool. Very helpful. I mean, in our youth, the youth leaders were and played a big part in letting us do what we wanted to do.
What was the first Onslaught song written?
Thermonuclear devastation of the planet Earth. Yeah, very first one. I did the music, and I think Paul and Jace did the lyrics for that one. Yeah, and still playing it live today. Still sounding amazing. Fans love it. It's a great encore track. So yeah, it's incredible that we're still actually doing that 43 years down the line.
And you guys had been rehearsing what, 7 and so I know you guys mentioned you did your first show at the youth center. You guys have been doing like what? So you guys were doing 7 to 9 months of rehearsals at that time period before you guys started doing shows around Bristol. What were some of the bands you were doing shows with?
Uh, Luckily, good friend of ours started putting on shows at a venue in Bristol. He was bringing American bands in, doing a lot of the bigger British bands at the time, GBH, The Exploited, DOA from Canada. All the big punk bands were coming through Bristol, and he put us on as support every time, which
They
was
saw you, were they like, "Oh shit, man, we remember you from following us around for all those years."
yeah. I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, it really got us off the ground, because that's how we got our first record deal. Through those gigs in Bristol. And again, last night, because we were rehearsing last night in Bristol, it was very close to the venue where all these shows were. And I said, well, we were discussing a Bristol show for next year. We were kind of thinking about going back to this venue, which is called the Trinity Hall, where we played all those shows and really kicked off our career properly. So it's still something we're thinking about for next year to go back there, because I think kind of nostalgia, something, but it's still a great venue.
That's awesome. And how long did it take you guys to get the material together for the '83 demo, the first one?
I don't think it took too long, to be honest. Obviously, being a new band, you're kind of really raring to go and kicking lots of stuff around, So I think that again, there was Dave from Vice Squad who done our first demo. It must have been fairly early on, because Jason and Paul were still in the band then. And we recorded a 4-track demo with those guys, and Dave and Shane, the drummer from Vice Squad, they kind of produced it for us. So yeah, that was kind of early days, very early days for those 4 tracks that we recorded them. And then we were just kind of quite prolific writing it in those early stages.
You mentioned Jason Paul leaving the band. So, obviously, you guys have been around for a long time. And as we all know, that means a lot of member changes. So you had Jason Paul leave, and then that brings in Roger and Paul Davies. How did they get involved? And why did Jason Paul leave the band?
On a strange, I really don't know. I'm not sure Jace was really kind of cut out for it, because when we rehearsed, um, a lot of people would turn up to just to watch, a lot of friends and hangers on. I'm not sure if Jace kind of liked the spotlight, if you like. He was kind of a quiet guy with an angry edge, but I just don't think he enjoyed being in the spotlight. And he kind of got into bodybuilding, and I think Paul liked the idea of that. So Jace left, and then I think Paul kind of wanted to follow on with Jason, do all the bodybuilding thing, which they did for a good few years after Onslaught. And Rod Davis was another friend of mine from school, funnily enough. And Paul Davis was a friend of Steve Grice's. So it's kind of easy. Lots of guys wanting to be in bands at the time. It said it was an exciting time in Bristol for music, and everybody looked to be part of something.
You guys put out a second demo, and so that came out on tape in '83, also independent release, single-sided, 5 tracks. Did Roger and Paul have anything to do with the material on that, or was that pretty much written pre?
I wrote everything kind of from thermonuclear devastation onwards. I kind of wrote pretty much everything, then, even lyrics and music. So
And where was that demo recorded, the second one?
I think we recorded that at a youth club, funnily enough. Another guy, once I was looking to improve my playing, I got in touch with this guy who was had a good reputation for being a good teacher, and he turned out to be the guitarist from the punk band called The Only Ones. I don't know if you heard of them. They were quite
John Perry?
Yeah, John Perry, that's the man. Yeah, and John, I had lessons with John for a little while he was showing me the next level where I wanted to go to, and he produced the second demo, I think, if I remember correctly. He had little kind of 8-track Porter studio, which he brought up to the youth club, and we did it there. And he took it home and mixed it, and I think, yeah.
So was it like, the zines back then, they're used to you guys kind of are different than the other bands around that time period. So are you guys putting the demos in the zines? Like this is about 80, 82, 83, 84. And do they understand what you guys are doing early on?
Yeah, I think so. Because that scene in particular was pretty big. And then this other guy who was quite a prolific and well-known writer of fanzines, turned out to be Mo Mahoney. And he was massively into Onslaught before he joined, giving us lots of coverage in his fanzine, which was Nervous Wreck, I believe, I think. And obviously putting our name around to lots of other zines and things. And we were getting a lot of attention from everywhere, basically. And everything was kind of spiraling from the early demos through the shows in Bristol, which then led us to get the record deal for Power from Hell. Then we were doing lots of stuff with Maximum Rock and Roll in America, and Pushead was working for those, and he picked up on us, and eventually released Power from Hell on his Pusmore records when he started a label. So it was a crazy time. Everything was snowballing really quickly.
Were you guys doing the whole DIY thing, like doing your Xerox on your own for those demos, because there's a handful of demos that you guys put out before, obviously Power from Hell and stuff. Are you guys pretty much everything in-house?
Yeah, it was, and it still is, really. I found a bag the other day with all the kind of, I don't know if you notice it, it's called letter set. Basically, you got these sheets of lettering that you make all your own artwork and stuff with it. It was everything was done photocopies, as you say, on Xerox, all in the house all the time. So yeah, we've still pretty much stuck to that ethos now.
And that third Onslaught demo, in '83, titled "What Lies Ahead," that was a compilation of rehearsal tracks and live tapes tracks, right? It has like 12 tracks on there.
Yeah.
And we're actually going to play. So, what can you tell us about? We're going to play "Protest," but Who Said You'll Survive off of that demo.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we used to get some decent sounds at rehearsal. I think they probably don't sound so great now because they've been transferred from tape to tape to tape. But some of the original recordings on the Ghetto Blaster we had was really cool. So yeah, I remember those days very well, especially that song in particular. So
we're going to play that now. We're going to play Onslaught, Protest, but Who Said You'll Survive from the '83 demo, What Lies Ahead, and we'll be back with Nige after this track from Onslaught.
Protest, but who said you will survive?
And that was Onslaught with Protest, but Who Said You'll Survive. So 1984, you put out a 4-song demo and a split. So, obviously there's a lot of demos, so I'm going to just mention them really fast. If you could tell me, anything you remember. So I have them as like demo 5, 13 tracks cassette. Had tracks like Insects and Grass on there and stuff. Was this, and there, what can you tell us about that demo?
Not a lot, to be honest. I don't really remember what tracks are on it. You can probably enlighten me more than I can remember on that thing.
You had the Insects on there. You had the Cannibal track on there.
Yeah, that was kind of a little bit more experimental. We were trying different things before we kind of hit the more metal influenced stuff. I can't really remember recording that one too much, but I know we did 2 tracks on a compilation album, which was called, bizarrely enough, called Daffodils to the Daffodils, which featured a lot of cool bands, and it got us a lot of great exposure. I think we recorded that again with Dave from Vice Squad in Sam's Studios in Bristol, which seemed to be the go-to studio for all the punk bands in Bristol. I think we recorded Shadow of Death and something else that slips my mind, but it did great. I mean, that was when we started to sort of get a little bit more of a metal edge to what we were doing. My guitar playing had improved a little, allowing me to kind of do some of this stuff a little closer to metal. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of thing that really kicked on towards Power from Hell from that point. When we done that, it got us a lot of national exposure.
Yeah, and I won't make you go through all the demos, but there was a demo 6, which had 4 tracks. It had stuff like Final Moments on there and Death Row. Then you had Foxhole, which was 4 tracks. It was an EP. Then you had the Hatred Towards the System demo, 23 tracks, with some live tracks on that. And then Persons Unknown, which was a 4-way split you guys did. And around this time period, you guys are like, the crowds for your guys' shows are very crossover.
Yeah, I mean, they always have been, fortunately. It was weird because a lot of other places, a lot of other cities in the country used to see a lot of problems with like skinheads and punks and psychobillies. In Bristol, everything mixed. We would have lots of skinheads, lots of punks, and lots of psychobillies all at the same shows. All very violent, but all kind of friendly at the same time. So yeah, I mean, if any outsiders came into town, it was a different story. It got a bit chaotic now and again. But yeah, I mean, we had a great crossover crowd. And again, that's something that stuck with us for a long time, especially in Bristol. We're still seeing a lot of the same faces from back then. It shows when we play Bristol now. So.
I had heard you do an interview. I don't know when it was. It was a couple years ago, probably, and you had said something that made sense to me. People are like, "Well, why did Onslaught sound evolves eventually?" But that's also because you guys became just better at playing your instruments.
Yeah, 100%. As I said, it couldn't play when we formed Deranged. Improved obviously a little when we started Onslaught. It was something we all worked very hard at. I remember quitting my job in 1984 to solely write Power from Hell. And I was playing guitar like 10 hours a day, then really trying to improve myself. Um, you may not hear that particularly on Power from Hell, but then you'll hear the difference between Power from Hell and The Force, which was only a year. And then the jump from that to In Search of Sanity. So you can kind of see the time we were putting into our own personal performances, and that obviously helps when you're writing material as well. You're able to play much more intricate parts and learn and develop your songwriting as well as the playing improves.
Oh, definitely. And you guys were around 6 months, and you guys are doing shows, and you guys basically after 6 months, you guys signed a deal with, Children of the Revolution Records, which was a label owned by Tim Bennett, which was basically started out as a government scheme?
Yeah, yeah. Tim used to go to all the shows that we play in Bristol, so he could see how the band were developing and growing. And he started up Children of the Revolution and came along and said, "Do you guys be interested in doing the first record?" Um, yeah, of course we are. I think we had very minimal budget. I think maybe 800 to £1,000. Well, I guess it was a fair bit of money back then. And that allowed us, I think, 4 or 5 days to record and mix Power from Hell. Um, and it just went off the scale. I mean, because of what was going on in the scene at the time and Tim's connections as well. Even though he was in the very early days of the record label, he had massive connections through the fanzines and stuff worldwide. And as I said, he hooked us up with Head for Passmore Records and landed us a deal with in Brazil. Can't remember now, something Discos in Brazil, which was a big label at the time. So um, things just took off. Woodstock Discos, it was. Things took off so quickly once Power from Hell had come out.
You guys and you I had heard you, I don't know if it was you or Paul who had said this in the past, but we mentioned Children of the Revolution, and for being a label that didn't have a big budget, and as you were just saying, they really helped push you guys, and, it was, something that I've heard you guys pay respect to in many past press.
Mm. I don't know. I can't thank Tim enough for what he did. He was a lovely guy. Um, we've spoke very little over the last years, but we drop each other a message now and again. But yeah, I can't thank him enough for what he did for us. Obviously, without him, Onslaught would have never got to where we are today. So yeah, I mean, as I said, the connections at that time, particularly in the punk scene, were um, obviously it was all kind of everybody was writing each other letters all the time, and you get stacks of mail, unbelievable amounts of mail from all across the world. And that's how things worked. It was a real kind of underground network of mailing, basically, because you didn't really have the outlets on radio in the UK. I think we kind of had John Peel, who played a lot of early punk bands. He played Onslaught a lot, and that was a massive show because he was on BBC Radio One every night, and he was a huge DJ pioneer in punk music and kind of all things like that, very alternative stuff. Um, so yeah, it was just all word of mouth, really, as no internet or nothing like that. So it was incredible to see.
And, you know, you mentioned back then, we're talking like, so 84-ish. You guys also, when you guys do the deal with Child of Revolution Records, there is no contract, right, back then? This is a whole different time period.
Yeah, no contracts whatsoever, all verbal. Obviously, then within um, 5 or 6 months of Power from Hell being released, even maybe less than that, we got a call from Music for Nations, who were obviously massive label at the time, having Metallica, Megadeth, all the big
Yeah, they
American.
had Merciful Fate on there. They
Yeah,
had, you know,
we got a call from them, and it's like we thought it was a wind up at first, as somebody
fucking with you.
put in our chain, but no, it wasn't. It was legitimate, and they wanted to sign the band, which was again, it's like mind blowing for us at the time. Um, and that's when that was contract time, so there was a big label. Um, we signed our first real contract with them.
In '84, Roger and Paul also left, right? And they're replaced by Jason. You already mentioned Paul Mahoney and the relationship you guys had with him already. You know, again, as we always say, you know, you can always disclose what you want, but why did Roger and Paul leave? And Jace, how did he get involved? Because I'm pretty sure you guys already had the connections with Paul, like we mentioned.
Yeah, Rod again. He kind of, I think he kind of struggled with live shows again, a bit like Jace. Like, he wasn't a wallflower by any stretch of the imagination, but he used to get extremely drunk before shows. A lot of the time, we'd have to go and find him. I mean, generally, you'd find him in the nearest bar. Sometimes you'd almost have to carry him out, and that wasn't kind of. I mean, we all like to drink. We always got drunk a lot, but there was a time and place, and the time wasn't when we're about to do a show. We had a few issues at rehearsal when he would eventually turn up, and I think some of the place got damaged, and I think it was down to Rod when he had too much to drink again at rehearsal. So it became a bit of a problem. So we kind of had to um, look for somebody else, which came in the guise of Paul Mahoney. So we kind of he was in place, and we knew who he was. Um, as opposed to Paul Davis, I think again, I'm not really sure why he just said I don't want to do this anymore. And we all used to drink in the same bar. Jay Stallard was friends with Rog Davis, and it was all kind of very incestuous in, in those days. Everybody knew each other, and it was all in the local area. So there was, like I said, there was just a chain of people who wanted to be in bands, and that's so they stepped into the Onslaught camp then.
Did you guys have most of the Power from Hell material written before the switch over?
No, I think most of it was written when I guess Mo and Jace were in the band. Um, as I said, oh, that was the Force album. But, the Power from Hell stuff, as I said, I quit my job to write that. So yeah, I'd done most of that at home, and that was all written in kind of sort of mid 1984. Um, so yeah, I mean everything was quick. The writing was quick. Recording was quick, and obviously the lineup changes were quick as well. Unfortunately.
Well, you guys went into what? AVM Studios, which for you in Stoke, which for you is probably a very cool thing because Discharge recorded the Ignorance EP there. You know, how was that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean it was great. I mean the two guys working out um, were were fantastic, um, and massive help to us. They were both experienced musicians, so they really knew what they were doing, and they could understand what we were trying to achieve.
Was that Les Hunt and Des Parton?
That's right, yeah, especially Les in particular. But he was such a massive help. I mean, it's a very dirty, dark sounding record, and I guess it's kind of become iconic for that. I mean, it's not necessarily the most pretty sounding record, and I guess it wasn't ever meant to be. But we just let them get on with the mix, you know. So just you do what your thing, and that's how it came back. And it was like, wow, this is a very thick sounding, heavy, dirty record, and it didn't sound like anything as such before, which was kind of cool. It had its own identity. So yeah, well, we didn't ask for any changes, and we just ran with it. As I said, it was everybody started to hear it, and it was crazy the response it was getting for something that had taken just 4 or 5 days to complete from start to finish was incredible.
You guys really, you talked about dark and dirty. Back at this time period, you guys have no money, no food, right? Nowhere to stay, and you guys are sleeping in the studio?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it was maybe late October, November. So I remember we drove up to Stoke-on-Trent, 2.5, 3 hours drive. It was piercing down with rain, really cold. We just said, guys, we got nowhere to stay. Any chance we can crash on the floor? And in fairness, which was amazing of them, they allowed us to do it because they didn't know us from the guy 10 miles up the road the other way. But they were brilliant. They let us stay there, and uh, it was kind of cool because we were focusing on what we were doing. We do some long sessions, and then have a chance to discuss, go out and get something to eat or drink, and it was a good time.
Yeah, I think I had read one of you guys say that you guys basically lived off of tea and biscuits for that whole experience. The cover art was done by Steve Woolley.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was a guy. It was a guy who used to work in the factory where I worked before I quit my job to write the album. You know, he was the kind of art guy in the factory who did all the designs. It was a print factory, so they do a lot of their own designs and stuff. And he helped out massively on that, putting everything together and making it look very professional, I would say, for back in that time.
Weren't you guys? Wasn't the pentagram supposed to be a little different on there? But was either a lack of time or money that the reason that it wound up like it did?
Like I didn't really bother too much with the artwork and stuff. It's not really my thing, so I just let them get on with it. But I can't remember on that one, to be honest.
We're gonna play death metal from Power from Hell from '85, and we'll be back with Nige after this track. This is Onslaught with death metal.
Got some fire to my body flame. Evil demons loud in
that was Onslaught with Death Metal from Power from Hell that came out on Children of the Revolution Records in '85. And what are the shows you're starting to do in support of that record once it's out?
Um, we started to obviously branch out of Bristol. We were going to Newcastle a lot. There was quite a good scene up in Newcastle. Got friendly again through writing letters and fanzines. So I think we played up there 3 or 4 times during the Power from Hell, which was always great. It was a kind of squat gig, where it was an old police station that basically the punks had taken over, and the electric was still running there. So they used to put on tons of shows there. It was always great turnout and always a good time, even though long drive, but it was well worth the journey. We didn't get paid anything at the time, obviously. But yeah, we started to branch out a lot more. I think we then did a small UK tour, maybe about 5 or 6 shows. It included, I think we played the Royal Standard in London. We played Leeds, Newcastle, Bristol, somewhere else. But it was cool. I mean, things were starting to happen for us, and people were really taking notice and wanting to book the band. So it was all getting set up nicely for the second album.
And you guys also, after talk about the second album. Prior to that, you guys start after Power. There's some changes that's going on, right? Paul Mahoney moves to the bass. Jay Stollard moves over to guitar, and you get Cy in the band, Cy Keller, which was not intentional, right? You guys really weren't planning on bringing in somebody, but one of your crew brought him over to rehearsals.
Yeah, I mean, we liked the idea of getting a second guitar just to thicken up the sound a little bit. And I still wasn't the best lead guitars around, but we wanted to put solos in, and it kind of sounded a little bit flat when the guitar would just kick into solos with nothing else in there. So it was a chance to make our sound a little bit flatter. Obviously, Mo would join the band then, and he was um, playing bass, and he always fancied himself as a lead singer, and he was a great frontman. He's very good. And I'm having done some of the Power from Hell stuff recently on the tours we've been doing. I was really quite impressed with his vocals when you kind of listen back to it. You hear certain things that maybe you didn't hear all those years ago, and kind of got to appreciate a lot what he's done. Um, but then we were at rehearsal again at the youth club, and one of our roadies turned up with Cy. Never met Cy before, and um, he came in like looking like a typical, I would say, Deep Purple fan, which he was, massive Deep Purple fan. And Steve said, "Oh, why don't you let Cy have a go on vocals just to see what you could do?" I can't remember what song it was in particular. We used to cover all sorts at the time. We used to play Sabbath songs and little bits of other stuff. So Cy said, "Oh, do you know this?" "Yeah, we know a part of that, so let's do it." He started singing, and everybody's just looking at each other. It's like, wow, this is different level again. And I think we virtually offered. We played jammed a couple of things, and I think we pretty much offered him the job there and then, which was maybe, I don't know, maybe it wasn't great for Mo, being the vocalist at the time, but I'm sure he agreed to it there and then. And as much as I say, well, like, this guy's so much better than me, um, and that's what we did, and never looked back after that.
Do you remember what Cy's first gig was with the band? I know we're probably hitting the memory hard here.
I'm I'm gonna say possibly the Marquee. Don't hold me to that, but I'm thinking we. I don't even think. Yeah, we
You
just.
opened for Exciter at the Marquee in '86,
Yeah,
right?
that's it. Just the Force had just come out, um, and I'm pretty sure that was his first gig. And I remember that Exciter had taken, and it aged to soundcheck forever and ever, which means that we had hardly any time to set up, and the doors were open. And the place was absolutely packed when we were setting our gear up, and so we had chance to do a little 2 or 3 minute sound check um, before we due to start the show. I remember we played Metal Forces at sound check, and the place was rammed, and the whole place just went absolutely nuts. There's like stage diving, bodies going everywhere. This is only sound check, and it was like incredible, um, unbelievable. And the show obviously after was just insane. But I'm pretty sure that Si's first gig could have been there.
You're rehearsing at the youth club, and it took you guys what 6 months to write the Force record?
It was kind of quick, because obviously Power from Hell didn't come out till February 5. So yeah, it was a very, very quick turnaround. And as I said, we'd improved as musicians a lot. We were rehearsing very regularly, and I was still at home. Obviously, I hadn't got another job at that point because band was priority, and I wanted to move on as much as we could. So yeah, things came together really quickly on that one. And I guess that would have been recorded late 85 or early 86. So yeah, it was a very short space in between those two records.
Yeah, because you guys, as we mentioned earlier, you guys are on the help from Revolution Records got you guys with under one flag. And I believe it was 86 January, February 86. I believe you guys enter Matrix Studios. Studio again, which has some kind of history to it. Sex Pistols did the Nevermind the Bollocks record there, which everything goes back, as we always say. And you had David Pine produce the record.
That's right. We were supposed to be having another. There was supposed to be another guy, and Dave was basically the young studio lad, basically who would help out. The guy who was supposed to be actually doing the record had some marital problems, and his head was kind of all over the place. And he just come in on a morning and just do nothing, and then disappear and not come back. So basically, Dave Pine took over the session. So he was only a young guy. I'm still learning, but another guy who did an absolutely amazing job for us. Um, incredible what he did because the album sounded really good at the time. It's had a little bit dated now, obviously, but what he did was incredible for a guy with such little experience, especially taking the helm control of the whole project was amazing.
I think on the Force compared to Power, there's definitely more elements to the band going on with the songwriting and the structures and stuff like that. Do you guys just again, does that contribute to you guys just learning how to write together and be a band at that time?
Yeah, I mean we as I said we added the additional guitars, which allowed us to do a lot more things. Um, but yeah, I think the main factor was being more accomplished musicians, which, as I said before, enables you to write better songs. That's what I put it down to, basically.
And you handle the lyrics as we mentioned, and so a week before you guys are going to record, is that when you Metal Forces, which I think you mentioned already, that is written, which is obviously a respect to Bernard Doe, who was the British heavy metal magazine Metal Forces, which started in 83 and ended in 92.
Yeah,
So did you write that a week before the recording?
yeah. It was. I think it was one of the last songs because it kind of when we wrote it, it was kind of. I said, "Does this sound right for this record?" I don't know because it had a lot of catchy riffs and catchy vocals. Is our fan base ready for a song like this? I don't know. But when we recorded it, it sounded incredible. And it's been a fan's favorite ever since. So I'm certainly glad that we did include it on the Force album in the end. But yeah, it was definitely the last minute thing because it was the freshest out of the lot, and it was definitely a different step direction for the band at the time.
And Bernard, he had written some great things about you guys that time period in the magazines, the
Yeah,
reviews and stuff.
the the, the magazine had been amazing, helped because it was very London based with Shades Records and stuff, and it was kind of all hand in hand there. But Metal Forces was the thing that really took us off the ground in the scene at the time. As I said, that magazine and Shades Records were huge in the UK, and everybody reading the magazine, everybody wanted to go to Shades Records. So yeah, I mean, we just felt that we owed him something big, and we felt the nicest way to kind of say thank you was to write a song dedicated to the magazine and Bernard.
And as we mentioned, you're getting, I mean, that record's getting great reviews right off the bat. In '86, Paul Mahoney leaves the band and Jim Hinder steps in. What was the reason for that?
It still baffled me today, that one. I think obviously Mo finally, I guess he took a little bit of offense, maybe, even though he didn't say anything to Sly kind of taking over on vocals. Um, and he'd found himself a new girlfriend. And one day he just said, "Oh, I've had enough." I guess maybe he didn't like the direction we were going in again with because he was very much into punk music, and seeing how the band were progressing to very much more a metal band, you know. And so I guess there was a culmination of several different things that it caused Mo to go, I guess.
In '86, you guys start really playing. We mentioned the Exciter show at the Marquee, which was probably Sly's first gig. You guys play with Girls School, Crow Molly at Clubfoot in London. You guys are playing, which I think may have been the biggest crowd at that point you guys played at. You guys played Hammersmith in London with Anthrax. Was that the biggest crowd to that point you had played in front of?
Yeah, Hammersmith Palais, which was a
Yeah.
famous venue in England. It dated back to kind of the 50s. It used to be like a big dance hall. Yeah, we played there with Anthrax, so that was probably the biggest crowd at the time we'd done. Um, and then yeah, it would have been up until the Motörhead tour. That would have been the biggest show.
And was that the show you guys had a shitload of issues with broken strings and all a bunch of technical issues?
Yeah, it was a complete disaster, really. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. You know, first song, string breaks. I was like, no, this is not happening. Yeah, it was. It kind of got good halfway through. And the crowd understood what was going on, but it's not really the kind of thing you want happening on your first real major London show. I mean, we played the clubs before in London, and it was great, but this was a big step up, and for all that stuff to go wrong was not cool.
Yeah, I had read a review of that show, and they said I think it but after they said I think they said, like, Contract in Blood and Fight with the Beast was, like, the issues for the sound, and after that, they said you guys killed it, so they said it was, everything got normal and stuff.
But
And you mentioned Motörhead, which obviously '87, which, I mean, we'll talk about, which we're actually gonna play Iron Fist at the end of the show that you guys did the cover of. So Iron Fist too, so you guys get a tour with first of all, how do you find out you're getting the tour with Motörhead in '87?
uh, Jem Howard from Music for Nations gave me a call. He said, "Get your stuff together, get your suitcases packed. You're going on tour next week." Are we? What's this? I said, "Well, you're going on tour with Motorhead for a month in Europe." It was like, wow. So that was it. It was like, wow, this is incredible. I mean, the things have been going great as it was, but to land this was like real, really next level stuff. Yeah, and it's incredible, especially being such massive Motorhead fans, to find yourself going out with those guys for that long, and some of the shows was unreal.
And you guys also we mentioned Iron Fist. The first time you actually deal with them, you're watching the sound check and they're playing Iron Fist.
That's the reason we re-recorded that or recorded that track. I think the first show was in Zurich in Switzerland, and we arrived, I think, kind of like 5 in the afternoon. Went to the venue. Obviously, they were set up, ready to sound check. I think 4 of the guys, 3 of the guys were on stage. Just us in the crew in the room. They were all waiting for Lemmy, and out steps Lemmy, stamps on the floor 4 times, and they crash into Iron Fist, and it was like off the scale. Never, obviously, massive venue, massive PA. Um, never been involved in something that high level before, and the sound was just incredible. It just blew you away, and it's like that moment will never ever leave me. Like when Motörhead crashed into Iron Fist, it was just incredible.
The first time you actually talked to Lemmy was when he, well, maybe it was the same show, actually, I believe. You guys are playing and he comes knocking on your door telling you guys to get back out and do an encore?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great show for us. So being the first night, we were kind of told about their tour manager being kind of very precise and everything has to be done his way. So we're very respectful of that. We knew we don't want to get on the wrong side of anybody on the first day. So finished our set, pack up quickly, take the guitars off, back to the dressing room. Literally within a minute, maybe, of walking into the dressing room, door shut, bang, bang, bang on the door. Who's that? Open the door and Lemmy stood there. I was like, oh no, what have we done wrong? It's like, guys, get back out on that stage now. They want more now. Out. That was it. Amazing. Never spoke to him, never met him before, not on the tour anyway. And um, told us to get back out on the stage and play another song. Absolutely amazing. And that was set the tone for the whole tour. You know how they were with us. It was incredible.
And you guys had Filthy. He was, doing your like, he was announcing you guys before you went on for most of that tour?
Yeah, yeah. That was another thing. Again, I'd never met Phil before. I met Lemmy a few times in bars in London, but never met Phil before because he'd only just returned to the band as well, which was great because he's obviously like amazing drummer and the biggest part of Motörhead. But yeah, he said, "Oh, I'm gonna introduce you guys every night," and he did. It was just like this is not happening to us. This is just like so surreal, like absolutely amazing.
And I had heard that Lemmy kinda taught you how to treat like, how to act on the road, right? Which is how to kinda carry your guys' selves on the tour.
Yeah, I mean, it was all of them really, the whole band and the crew. As I said, we were very, very young and very kind of naive to touring, especially at that level. It was all very new to us, but you just see how they treated us and just just speaking to the guys and just learning from them all the time. And the amount of improvement in Onslaught over that 1 month was amazing. Um, and it really did show how you can be on tour as such a big band and be completely respectful to a band much lower down the ladder than yourselves, you know. Because I mean, I think Lemmy said it as well. He said, "Be nice to people on the way up because you're going to meet them on the way down." And that's exactly how they were. You couldn't fault the guys for anything. They gave us everything we wanted, asked us every day if there's anything we needed, and it was perfect.
Is that a mind blower for you? You know, you're sitting back, we talked about earlier in the interview, you're a Discharge fan, you're a Motörhead fan, and all of a sudden, you got Lemmy knocking on your door, man. Is there a point where you're just like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Yeah, yeah. Every day on that tour, really, it was just mental, absolutely insane. Best thing we'd ever done. I still say that till this day. I mean, we've done some great stuff, but I still hold that is probably the best thing that this band has ever done in terms of everything, in terms of playing to thousands of people, being such an amount of fun, and everything else. It was just the perfect tour.
Oh, yeah, because 'cause you're playing in front of at that time period with on that Motörhead tour, it's like, what, 7, 8,000 people a night?
Yeah, yeah, it's massive. I mean, they just come back. I think it was the Orgasmotron tour. Of course, Filthy coming back in the band, and it was a kind of big rebuild period for Motorhead at the time, and they were putting a lot of stuff into it. Um, so yeah, I mean they were putting some real good crowds.
In '87, you guys put out a 3-song "Let There Be Rock" under EP on Under One Flag, which actually has a couple live tracks from the Great Linford Manor shows. Um, how did that come about?
It was just a thing after the Force had been out for a little while. We'd done the Motorhead tour. Profile was high. So we felt we needed to put some more material out while we were kind of working on the next stage of our career. So we decided it was something because of the track "Let Every Death" on Force album. we decided to have a bit of fun and do Let There Be Rock. So I used to announce it every night. He'd say, "Let there be what?" Crowd would be death. Let there be what? Death. Let there be what? Death. Then we just crashed into one night. We decided to play Let There Be Rock and crashed into that, and the place just went nuts. Kind of tricked everybody, and then it was amazing. We did Let There Be Rock, and then straight into Let There Be Death after. I think the first time we did that was in our hometown in Bristol. We played a place called the Colston Hall, big concert venue. And the place got absolutely leveled, absolutely trashed. All the streets were ripped out. All the security ran out the building. It was just insane. I think like 10 people got hospitalized and stuff. And we made the front pages of the press the next day. But incredible show. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, after all that happened, we decided that maybe we'll record this just for keep the profile high. Everybody loved us doing it, and that's the reason we did it. So.
Also, 87, Jace Stoward leaves the band, and you guys bring in Rob Trotman.
Yeah. Again, I think Jace had a few problems dealing with playing to bigger audiences, bigger stages. There's kind of nowhere to hide, and he was drinking heavily, taking a lot of substances, maybe, to get through the shows, which kind of then impacted on his live performances. I mean, visually, he was cool because he was charging about all across the stage everywhere, but the playing was inaudible, basically, where he was spending more time using his nervous energy on his running around on stage and actually playing his instrument. So it kind of became untenable in the end, and we had to kind of ask him to kindly leave the band because of that.
How'd you guys know Rob?
Rob was Rob used to go to the Granary and all the rock clubs in Bristol. Didn't really know him, but he was a friend of Jim Hender's. So Jim, being in the band now, he said, "Look, I know a great guitarist into all this stuff, so let's try him out," which we did. And Rob was up for it, and that began the next kind of period for Onslaught.
Because 88, Cy leaves the band for the first time. And you guys put out a 3-song EP on London Records called Shell Shock. And how does I know, like, obviously I know that maybe it wasn't the perfect fit, but how does obviously Steve from Grim Reaper, Steve Grimmett, how does he get involved in with you guys?
Again, that's something that I'm not really sure of, because we virtually recorded the whole album in Search of Santa. When all the label people came down, basically, I think about six of the top people at the label came down, the MD or A&R, head of A&R, head of press, head of this and head of that. And they were listening to the record. I was sat in there with our manager when they were having a playback, and I could see something wasn't right. You can tell when somebody isn't really enjoying what they're listening to. Admittedly, they were a kind of more pop orientated label, but you can tell that they didn't like what they were hearing. So there was no kind of applause at the end of the listen back, which again told a story. So head of A&R come out to our manager, said, "Look, we need a meeting ASAP. Right, this is not good." Basically, they came out and said, "We don't like the vocals on this at all. There's a problem with the vocals. It's not what we want." And I guess the conversation followed with our manager and the head guys at the label. And it seemed they cooked up this idea. They found Steve Grimmett, I guess. There was kind of no conversation with the band about it, apart from the fact that they're saying, "We don't like Cy Keeler's vocals."
Did you get stuck talking to Cy, or did they leave it in your hands?
Well, what happened next was our management said, "Look, we're going to be fair to Cy. We set you up at a studio near you. You'll have all the backing tracks. Steve Grimmett will go in and record 2 songs, and Cy can go in and re-record 2 songs again." Um, Kind of unfair. I mean, it was. I don't know. It was a tough time, and obviously Steve Grimmett sounds amazing. And Cy, I think, did pretty much what he had already done, which had to be very difficult for him. But I think Steve Grimmett was what the label were looking for, more mainstream voice. Um, they wanted us to be the UK's version of Metallica um, in a period of one album, which was never going to happen. No development time, and that's what happened. They said basically, you bring Steve Grimmett into the band, or you're going to be kind of sat on the shelf for a long time because this is not what we want. So we were kind of forced in that situation. And as much as Steve was an amazing singer, I don't think he was the right guy for Onslaught. He may have made In Search of Sanity sound a little more how London Records wanted it to sound, but it certainly wasn't how we, or myself in particular, wanted Onslaught to sound.
In '88, you guys were still doing shows with the Crumbsuckers, Acid Rain, Annihilator. You guys also put out another EP with Steve, Welcome to Dying. But then '89, which is kind of like, obviously we all know eventually you guys take a split for a while, but you, Steve, Jim, and Rob, and Steve Grice do the In Search of Sanity record. And you really disliked that label at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it caused the end of the band, basically. I will blame that label for Onslaught splitting because of what they did, basically. I was fighting with the producer constantly to try and make the album sound heavier. We need more guitars, heavier guitars, and it was like, okay, I'll fix it when you're gone. And he'll come back and I say, well, did you do anything? Oh yeah, I done lots to the guitars, and basically he didn't. He was lying. His mixes were going back and forth to England because we mixed in New York. Um, and he was just doing what the label was telling him to do. I mean, he made a very polished, unaggressive sounding record with a mainstream vocalist, and that's basically the long and short of how Onslaught ended up. And it kind of started to cause a lot of friction, I guess, or um, Steve left the band even within a year of joining, I think. Um, so things weren't good in the camp, and the inevitable way was to split it eventually. We tried to soldier on. We got offered a couple of other deals after we left London, and decided they weren't right for us. And that was it. And grunge came along. Nirvana took over everything. Thrash had a real hiding, and all the enjoyment and fun had gone from the band. So the only way to resolve that was to split, I guess.
And is that still like, that's the biggest selling record you guys had too?
Yeah, biggest selling album, yeah. It alienated a lot of the older fans. Brought a lot of new fans in at the same time. So it's kind of a bit of double-edged sword, really.
And when Steve left in '90, you guys had what? Tony O'Hara come in. It was like 3 months afterwards for a while.
Yeah, I mean, Tony was good. We did a tour which was fairly successful. I think we did like a 32-day tour in the UK, which was massive.
Madness Continues tour.
Yeah, I think that was one. Yeah, and it was a good tour, but it was very tiring, and then it was kind of, we were playing for nothing, if you like. There was no, because we hadn't had a record out and we hadn't had a deal. We were kind of riding on past glories to pull the crowd. So I just seen no way of going forward, especially what happened in the grunge thing. There was I'd seen no scope for Onslaught to grow anymore.
And that album, that with the Sanity record, that took you 6 months to record that.
Yeah, I mean it was ridiculous. Um, I don't know. I mean, massive budgets, and people want to spend those budgets for you. You know, it was kind of obscene when you look at we made I think our last album for €10,000, but then you go and spend 150,000, $180,000 on In Search of Santa, and Generation Antichrist pisses all over that. Oh, it's all like
And I've actually heard you say that you eventually you do plan on re-recording that Sanity record.
I mean, we done 2 tracks on the latest Origins album, and they sound amazing, so much more aggressive. How they should have sounded at the beginning. Um, so that's kind of frustrating. So we are going to be doing the full record at some point. The label are up for that, and we're definitely up for that. So it will happen at some point.
And you guys did you guys actually recorded a demo with Tony, When Reason Sleeps, but was never released?
Yeah, it was kind of different as the music scene was changing in particular. But there were a few good tracks on it. Again, I don't think it was too reminiscent of original Onslaught, and Tony wasn't a hugely powerful singer at the time. Um, but I think the songs had something there. But again, it just wasn't right with the labels that we were talking to, so all that got kind of shelved.
You guys had an offer too from A&M, correct?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. When we signed to London, yeah, we had 4 or 5 major labels wanting to sign the band when we decided to sign with London Records. Big mistake, I think, because we just followed the money signs, you know, instead of looking a little bit deeper into why the band or why they wanted to sign the band. I mean, the guys from A&M were massive fans, really into their rock and metal music. Whereas I said London, people in London were more dance orientated label. Um, but stupidly followed the money, which was the wrong thing to do completely. But when you're young and naive, that's the kind of thing you do. You know? I mean, hindsight's an amazing thing, and I wouldn't even think we'd sign to A&M any day from what they wanted to do for the band. So big mistake. Said it broke us in the end.
What did you do? You mentioned, obviously 2004 you guys reformed, but what were you doing in that time off? Were you just like kind of just doing you at that time, kind of stepped away completely?
I did another project after, with Tony O'Hora on vocals, and that's how I met Jeff Williams, our Onslaught bassist now. Did a project called Power Junkies, and we still keep threatening to do something with that now because it sounded so fresh. It was kind of actually a blend of old school Sex Pistols, um, metal music, really. Um, but it had this incredible attitude to it. And we were talking to Rod Smallwood, who manages Iron Maiden. He was massively into it. He'd phone me up on a morning when he was driving to the office. Nice, look, listen, look what I'm listening to. And he'd turn that up, and it'd be one of the tracks off the demo. Like, wow, right? He said, "So, can you do a showcase for us?" Of course, like, and funnily enough, our old A&R guy from London Records was working with Rod at Sanctuary Records at the time, because Dave was the guy, our A&R guy was the guy who signed Iron Maiden to EMI, so they were very well connected. And Dave was back working with Rod, so we decided to do this showcase in London. Um, and I thought we did incredible. Like, so again, you kind of got this weird feeling at the end of the showcase that something wasn't right. So Rod said, let's just go down to the pub and have a chat, which we did. He took me to one side and said, really sorry, Nige, but I'm going to pass on this. How? How you were phoning me every day, playing my music down your phone when you were driving in your car to work. And it's like, what have we done wrong? It's like, he just said, I don't like your vocalist, which was really bizarre because Tony sounded great, looked great. So never know. So that kind of got to the point for me where my enthusiasm for music had just been kicked in the teeth twice now. So that was it. Guitar went under the bed. All the other stuff got sold, and never picked up a guitar for 10 years. That was it. I thought I was done.
Well, you guys did, you know, obviously 2004, Cy, you, Jim Hinder, Steve Grice, and the guitarist, what, Alan Jordan?
Yeah, yeah. He was
Where does Alan come from?
um South Wales. He was actually in the Power Junkies as well for a space of time. Um, so that's how we knew him when Onslaught got back together. So um, we asked Al straight away, and he was up for it. Um, and that was the reincarnation, if you like.
When did you decide that it was time to bring the band back? And what was your first reunion show you guys did?
I think we did some festivals in Belgium. Were the first ones back. Some promoters we'd worked with in the past really liked the band a lot. I think I know Exodus were playing, and I think the other name is a black metal band. To big festivals in Belgium and Holland. So that was a really good introduction to tell people that we were back. Lots of press, big crowds. Yeah, it was kind of cool. We did okay for having such a long layoff.
You mentioned Jeff Williams because what? You guys put out 2 singles in 2006, and then Jim Hinder leaves the band, and then this is where Jeff Williams steps in?
Yeah, I mean Jim was never. He'd always said that he wasn't in it for the long run because he really had a high powered job in IT and stuff. It was obviously earning him a lot more than he would ever earn in the band. So we knew that he wasn't going to stick around for long. So hence Jeff being in Power Junkies with me, I said, I know this guy, great bass player, great attitude. Um, and basically, I think it was on the launch of Kill in Peace that we announced that Jeff would be joining the band and Jim would be leaving. So Jeff's been with us ever since. Second
And you mentioned
serving member of Onslaught.
Killing Peace too, and I've heard you say several times that was the album that should have came out in '89.
Yeah, that was how In Search of Sanity should have been, that attitude and that heaviness and aggression. So yeah, that's what inspired me to write those songs. Just trying to make up for In Search of Sanity, if you like.
You took your time on that with that material too, right? You guys didn't rush it, and you kind of took the power record, and you took the force record, kind of combined it with some more groove on that one.
I mean, it had to be right coming back, you know. Couldn't just come out. I mean, it took a long time to get back into the groove of writing as well, let alone picking up playing after 10 years. But I think Killing Peace was the actual first track I wrote for the album. And once I got that and found the niche where we felt we needed to be, it was kind of easy after that.
You know, and you record. We're actually going to play Killing Peace here in a second. You guys, 2007, you guys enter Backstage Studios in England to record the album. You guys work with Andy Sneap on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Andy for a long time. He was starting to make a really good name as a producer. So I thought, well, let's ask Andy to do it. And he said, definitely up for mixing it. So that's what we did. He produced the vocals and some of the other parts as well. And he did an amazing job. And great to work with him and see him again. You know, see now look where he is. He's huge now.
And you guys did a release show for that, right, in Bristol in 2007, which sold out.
Yeah, yeah. We were only discussing that the other day. Funnily enough, played in part of Bristol where I used to live. Yeah, it was an amazing night. Just so good to get back playing locally and seeing a lot of old faces there now, and to get the album out was incredible after all those years.
You guys, 2007, you guys are playing Kings of Metal Festival in the Netherlands. You guys are playing with Gorgoroth, Vader, Obituary, Dying Fetus. You guys also played Brutal Assault 7 that year. You know, what is some of your favorite? So, you know, you've played a shitload of festivals. What are some of the favorite ones you've played or been part of?
I think Bang Ahead was always one of my favorite festivals. Unfortunately, it's no longer running. That's always been amazing. Wacken obviously is different level, but Hellfest is right up there as well. That's one of the best festivals in the world. I think it's such a great festival. There's lots of cool ones, but I think the Bang Ahead was right up there, and Hellfest and Wacken.
Like I said, we're going to play Killing Peace here in a second. That came out in 2007 on Candlelight Records. First of all, how did the relationship with Candlelight start?
Steve B, the label boss, he was an old fan of Onslaught, and he was part of the reason Onslaught got back together, because he'd um, actually re-released Power from Hell and the Force in 2002 on his label Blackened Records, I think, which we knew nothing about. Um, when we found out 2005 that these records had been released and actually selling lots of copies, that's what kind of triggered the reunion of the band. So yeah, just to follow on with Steve, from what he did for us, they offered us a deal with Candlelight. Willingly accepted, and they did a great job.
Nice. And I know you don't have, like you were saying, you don't have too much to do with the art, but the art on that was done by Lee Yarlett. I know Jeff Williams had a hand in it also. What was the symbolism on that record cover for Killing Peace, the artwork?
They were just kind of to be offensive,
Yeah.
dark and offensive. That's what it's always about, to try and get people talking, which invariably it did. So
But we're going to play from Onslaught. We're going to play Killing Peace now from the Killing Peace record that came out on Candlelight Records in 2007. And we'll be back with Nige from Onslaught after this track.
Spitting blood in the face of God! Suicide and homicide, violent retribution is the aim. Animalizing cyanide, administered directly to the brain. Inhalation, vaccination, orchestrated genocide, sedation from the architect of pain. Killing peace in the eyes of the pure, tearing holes in the hearts of angels.
That was Killing Peace from Onslaught. 2008, Andy Rosen Davies takes over on guitar and Alan Jordan leaves the band. Now, I know for those next couple albums, Andy's a pretty big writing partner with you, correct? And how does he get involved and why does Alan leave?
Um, Alan had a problem with touring. We wanted to tour a lot. Alan didn't. So it seems to be a continuous theme of certain people struggling with going out on tour, for various reasons, whatever they may be. So that was basically the long and short of it. Alan didn't want to tour, and we did. So we couldn't sort of. If he was going to stay in the band, it would stop us from touring. So we had to go our separate ways. And Jeff knew of Andy. He's both from South Wales. He came along to audition. Then, what an amazing guitarist! He was into thrash music. Um, Absolutely amazing guitar player. Lovely guy. We made two great records together. Um, it was so nice to have a writing partner on the same level into the same kind of ideas. So
I was going to ask you that. Was that the first time you had somebody that you really wrote with like that?
yeah, and it was great. It was a breath of fresh air to get all these ideas, and we fed off each other so well. I mean, most of the riffs you hear are a combination of two of us. So I'd come up with something, Andy would say that, well, just change that a little bit, or vice versa. And that's how the whole worked. Very easy. We had a studio set up in South Wales, which was amazing. So we were recording all demos constantly as we were going. Yeah, it was just so easy.
In 2008, Onslaught puts out the Shadows of Death comp, which has tracks from the '83 demo, the '84 Fox demo, and I think from Shadow of Death also singles on there, some tracks. You guys do that. You guys do a 2009 live album from Damnation Festival in England. Then you guys do the 2009 South. Well, that's your first South American tour, right?
I think so. Yeah, that was absolutely incredible experience to go there for the first time. Some insane shows, lots of traveling. I think we did like 22 flights in 20 days. It was kind of,
Fuck.
it was brutal, man. But we were just running on adrenaline. It was so cool.
How was the accommodations? Because I had heard that you had said there's a couple of places you stayed where there was like no AC in the
Yeah,
hotels and shit.
there was a few dodgy places. Like Brasilia in particular. There was a big festival there, not a music festival, just a city festival. All the hotels were booked out, so we had to stay in this real dodgy out of town hotel with a green slime swimming pool and bare wires in the shower, blood on the beds. It was like
Just like it should be.
no AC. It was a nightmare.
And you've like I said, you've traveled around the world and stuff. For you, like South America, like what is the crowd? What is the most intense metal crowd that you've played in front of?
Uh, I think probably in Chile was probably one of the, or every time we go there, it's insane. But I remember once we played there with Overkill. I think it was like a 3,000 cap venue, something like that. And we played in Santiago the night before in a small club just as a warm up and to give us something to do just on the night. So great crowd turned out there. Um, Absolutely insane as always. At the end of the show, Cy said, "Thank you, good night. We will see you all tomorrow at whatever venue where we're playing with Overkill." So we're, we're like, we started off the set like 10 minutes into the set. There's this massive surge through the crowd. You see all the crowd opening up and like, what's going on? It's like come from the back of the hall. And then things just go completely mad. So we finished the set, had a great show. Overkill were coming on, but it was so hot. It was well over 40 degrees in the venue. We just could not literally stay in there. It was so hot. So we decided to go to a bar across the road. We walked out the venue, and there's police everywhere. And they have these massive steel doors, like 12 foot high, and like 3 or 4 doors. They're probably like 20 feet wide and 12 feet high. Huge steel doors, and they're hanging off. They've been destroyed, basically. We're like, what's going on? Like, your fans did this. What? Well, they said that your singer invited them to the show tonight,
Oh
and
shit.
they didn't have no tickets, so they decided to force their own entry. And these like 100 guys just stormed the security, broke the doors down, and that was what the surge through the crowd was. These guys crashing into the venue, ripped the doors off the hinges, hence why all the police were outside. It was absolutely insane. Every time we go to Chile, something happens. It's absolutely incredible place.
And you've toured with a lot of bands, like, obviously, we mentioned Motörhead and stuff, and I'm sure, back at that time period, there wasn't cell phones everywhere, and I'm sort of some crazy shit that you've been part of, but band-wise, with some of the who are some of the favorite bands that you've toured with outside of Motörhead, and has anybody ever just treated you like shit on a tour that, like we mentioned earlier, watch who you're, stepping over at a certain time period 'cause it's gonna come back to you. Has you guys always been treated with respect by the other bands?
Nah, there's a few bands who I won't mention, but um, they'd like they'd like to think um, they like to think they're friends, but they treat you. You find out that they're doing things kind of behind your back. Like I mean, one band in particular. It wasn't the band. The band were horrified on this occasion that their tour manager, because we played one show with them, and we did give them a hard time on stage. The crowd really went for us more than them. Next night, we were our sound front of house guy was approached by their tour manager and said, "With respect to the headliners, would you turn the band down tonight, please?" Like, it was like, really? Are you serious? Like, so we we kind of had a word with the band because they are nice guys, and they were horrified when they found out that their their guy was telling our front of house guy to turn us down. That was really not on. So I don't think they ever used this guy again after that, understandably. But yeah, there's been a few bands you find out who are doing sneaky little things behind your back just to kind of limit your capabilities on stage, if you like. Um, but obviously, I'm not going to name them, but it does happen.
Yeah. Well, in 2011, you guys put out Sound of Violence. With the Sounds of Violence record, that's 4 years after Killing Peace comes out, and I've heard you state a few times that you like to have some breathing room between albums, correct? So, like, kinda so you're not putting out the exact same record twice, because one thing about Onslaught is your records are always a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, if you turn out records every year, I think they're going to sound very similar. I think they kind of get maybe a little predictable. So yeah, I just like to have a window where your ideas change, your thoughts change, different things happen that influence the sound of a record, and just to grow away from the previous one. So I think there's no point in releasing the same record twice, and there's no point in releasing an album that's inferior to your previous one. So that's kind of the way I look at things, anyway.
And you guys on that record, you guys did the what? The vocals and drums are done in Denmark on that one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We worked with Jacob Hansen on that one. Really great guy. I'm still working with Jacob now. Um, such a
He's worked what? Destruction, Aborted, and stuff.
Yeah, he's such a chill guy. He's really nice and so good at his job. So yeah, I mean, we'll probably work with Jacob once again, but he did an amazing job on that record in particular.
You guys at that time, you mentioned already the home studio stuff. So you guys were pretty much on that record. You guys demoed everything out first, so you really were able to concentrate on what you're basically like hear everything prior.
Yeah, I mean, still do that to this day. Demo absolutely everything at home, live with the songs, change change things after you've lived with it for a month, 6 weeks, 2 months. You start to pick up on things rather than go into the studio and record everything there and then regret it once the record comes out. I think we like to live with it a little first just to see what's right and what's wrong.
You guys had obviously guest spots on that from Phil Campbell, and then Tom Angel Ripper from Sodom was also on that. You guys did a cover of Bomber, and was it easy to bring them in? Because you guys probably have a history with them just as friends.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we used to have breakfast and dinner with Phil Campbell on the tour. So Phil was first person we asked. Obviously, we wanted to do Bomber because it was a cool track. And Tom we've known for some time, playing festivals together. So he sounds great doing the Motörhead stuff as well. So it was kind of no brainer to get those two involved.
2011, you guys are doing shows with bands like you got Angel Witch, Tankard, Creator, Sepultura. You guys played Vok in 2011, Hammerfest in the UK. 2011 though, Steve, longtime member Steve Grice leaves the band. Why did he leave Onslaught?
Pretty much the same reason as everybody else at the moment, touring. Another he wanted a tour, and then as things got more progressive and the tours got longer and bigger, he didn't really want to do it. So you can't really let one person hold you back. So it was kind of a case of, well, the band wants a tour. If you don't want a tour, you're gonna have to step aside. Um,
That
and that's what happened. And it seems to be a serial theme all through the last decade or so. It's just people find touring difficult nowadays. You have to.
Well, you guys bring Michael in at that time period, but do you think that so you talk about with this touring, there's a different like the lifers they call it, right? Because it is something that you have to be made of a certain thing to be able to tour like that, right? And me and Ed have talked about this on the podcast many times that a lot of bands find out who can tour that long and who can eventually. Like, do you think it's just something that it's just in you if you can deal with it, especially when you start getting older? I mean, obviously we're all getting older. We know shit changes. It's not easy to sleep in a van or to do these things at a certain age.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, Mike was kind of used to touring, and then, as was everybody else. We had a kind of cycle of guitarists changing, and Andy left because of touring. Found a new girlfriend, didn't want to go away touring. Andy left. We got in another
Ian
guy,
Davies.
lasted for 4 or 5 years. Found touring too tough. It's just the general cycle is strange. You like I said, you're cut out for it or you're not.
2012, you guys do the full force tour, Japan, Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania. You also do your first US tour, 2012. You guys do Empire Evil, right? You guys do, and some dates with Evil Dead too, I believe, the Scream for Violence tour. Is that your first time in the US?
Yeah, touring. Yeah, that was the first time. We never got to the States in the first run of Onslaught. But yeah, that was the first time.
What was your first impressions, of obviously US crowds are totally different than the South American crowds and stuff, but was that a goal of yours to get to the US and do that?
Yeah, of course. I think every band wants to make the US to play, um, and it was a tough tour, lots of travel again, but it was great to actually finally get there and play some shows in America. Absolutely amazing.
2013, you guys put out the record Six, which is recorded in Sweden. And the second record with Andy, I mean, you guys are obviously, again, writing partners. And maybe with Psy, was that his, like, if you had to look at all his vocal performances on all the records, was that his top performance of records to that point?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. This is my favorite. Um, Psyche vocal performances in particular. Really kind of took it to a next level. His voice has got this amazing depth on that album. Yeah, so I will agree with you there that that is, I think, Psy's best vocal performance.
And the songs Children of Sand and Slaughter Eyes, that was influenced by Afghanistan fans?
Yeah, it was some British Army guys who were serving in Afghanistan, um, who we talked to and gave us some kind of insights into what was going on over there and what they were involved in. Obviously, I can't mention any names or anything like that, but that was incredible to hear some of the things that had gone on. So yeah, they were very influential in those two songs.
2014, you guys toured the US with Artillery. I think you guys did like 31 dates on that one. How was that tour for you guys?
Horrible. 42 dates in 42 days in
Oh shit,
in the
42
US and
dates.
Canada. That is absolutely insane, you know. That was we had Neil Turbin because Cy couldn't make that tour because his son was unwell. And we asked Neil Turbin to step in. Um,
You knew Neil, right, for like 8 years?
yeah, I kind of met him at festivals before and seemed a really nice guy. Sounded good vocally. Um,
I'd heard you made a list. Is that true of like vocalists that you were going to use, and that was the one that you chose? Can you mention any other guys you had on your list?
um, we would have asked probably Tony O'Hora again if he would step in. But there was I can't think of any off the top of my head. I don't know, but Neil was definitely top of my list at the time because I loved the Anthrax album he did. And I'd seen him around. We spoke. He seemed a really nice guy, and it just didn't work out. You know, unfortunately, um, it was a shame because I think it would have been great for both of us in the long run. Um, but it wasn't to be. Um, yeah, so it made things a little more tough on that tour.
You mentioned Andy leaving the band, then you guys have, Ian Davies come on, you guys did a South American tour again, a Spain tour, you guys did Bloodstock, Bang Your Head in Germany and Hellfest, and in 2015, Ian leaves the band and is replaced by, Wayne Dorman, who is a completely talented guitar player.
Yeah, that was 2019. Wayne joined. Ian was in the band for I think 4 or 5 years, 4 years. Um, yeah. Again, another guy who found touring very difficult. He'd never toured before in a band. Um, Onslaught were playing lots of festivals for the past 3 years. So it was kind of easy for people who don't like touring. It was just a weekend warrior type thing, one show on a weekend back home. So as soon as anything remotely being away from home for a long time started to cause problems. And that's what it did. So yeah, it's just the same thing rears its ugly head once again. The word touring.
2018, Michael left, right? And that's when you guys get the Karen drummer, James Perry.
Yeah, yeah. James was going to join originally back when Mike joined, but James had some serious health issues at the time, and we were going to South America for the second time, I think, and we just couldn't let him come with us because it was that serious. He had to sort his health out. There was no way we could risk his life. It was that bad. Um, so we said, "Look, I'm really sorry. You've got to sort your health out first, or you may not ever play drums again." So that's what happened. Then Mike joined. So when Mike decided to leave, he got a new partner. Didn't want to tour anymore. Same story. Funnily enough, James phoned me up the week after Mike had quit. I said, "Mate, this is perfect. Now's your time for coming back to Onslaught." So, which he did, and he's amazing, best drummer we've ever had by a long way.
And, it also contributes to 2025 too, because you go, what, 2020, Cy leaves the band again for the second time, and obviously James is a former bandmate and longtime friend with Dave. So, but first of all, why did Cy leave the band in 2020?
Pretty much the same thing as everybody else. Man. It's kind of burnt out with touring. We toured heavily since 2014, and I think it just got on top of everybody, or the people who couldn't really deal with it too much. So he just got a new job, which he was enjoying very much. And I think he just seen it as a good opportunity to sort of step back and not have such a manic lifestyle.
You guys get Dave, obviously James, I said he's played with him and stuff. And I had heard, so when you had first heard James's material, right, you were just before you had actually stepped in a room with him, you weren't really sure that he was the guy for the job.
Dave, no, because I checked out the the stuff he did before, and I said to James, I said, I don't think he's gonna suit Onslaught. But James said, "Oh, give him a chance. He's got some various different styles, he can bring to the table." Um, so we gave him some tracks to record, just the backing tracks, and to do some vocals, and it was completely different to how he was in his previous band. It was great, absolutely amazing, different. different thing completely to side, but he could hit the high notes. He had a lot of aggression in his voice. So it was a immediate shoo-in for Onslaught.
What was his first gig with you guys?
Maybe Bloodstock, possibly. I mean, I know when he joined, I think we played his first 4 or 5 shows. He played to about 30,000 people. So it was a
Christ.
it was a nice introduction for him. Yeah, I think it was probably Bloodstock.
We're going to talk about, which is a great record, Generation Antichrist. That was like a month after he joined.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, did an amazing job. We got a friend of mine, Pete Hinton, who produced all the early Saxon records to come in. Steve was obviously very kind of nervous, so we got Pete in to help out on the vocal production. Did an amazing job. Got him really relaxed and got him in the right frame of mind. You know, it just blew everybody away. Done his vocals in 4 or 5 days. Absolutely amazing job.
Now, Cy was a killer vocalist, but do you think would Dave has more of the, I guess aggressive would be the how I would say with his vocals?
Yeah, I think a little more aggressive. Kind of very different to Cy. Cy had this very deep, intense voice. Very quite kind of dramatic in a way, whereas Dave was a little bit more straightforward, aggressive. Um, but yeah, both have their qualities, you know. But both amazing vocalists.
You guys record that record at Dugout Studios in Sweden. You guys do 2 videos for that, right? Bow Down to the Clowns and Generation Antichrist.
Yeah.
And you guys also, which I thought was cool, and I've heard you talk about it before. You guys decided, hey, no one else is putting out. Everyone's doing live streams right now. Everyone's doing this. You guys, let's put out a record. And you guys put out that record during that time period.
Yeah, I mean, we felt nobody is getting anything new. If we decide to put it out, we're going to get so much attention. And that proved to be right. It was amazing that we did. I think I've done over 200 interviews during that period because obviously journalists were looking for bands with something new to talk about, and the fans had some new music to listen to. So not many bands did it, but it paid off massively for us.
2022, obviously, we talked about in the beginning of the interview, you had 2 spine surgeries. You had a lot of shit going on. You missed 3 years of playing live shows with the band, which I couldn't even imagine, right? You also had cancer scares.
Yeah, it was tough. It's been a tough 3 years. Still not back 100%. I'm still working on things. Playing still not where it should be. I reckon I'm running at about 70%. Because I completely lost the use of my arms 3 years ago. I had a trapped nerve in my spine, the nerve that controls both your arms. It got completely crushed basically and wouldn't function. So I eventually got surgery after a year on that. They basically cut my throat open, went in, taken out one of your bones in your spine. I think it was L5 or L6, the one that touches the nerves, and put a metal cage into my spine, basically, so to stop anything pressing down on that nerve. And they said, well, you may get 5%, you may get 30% back use of your arms. So far, I reckon I'm at about 70%, which is amazing. Those guys did an absolutely fantastic job. I recovered, or recovering from that one. I got the same problem at the bottom of my spine, so it was kind of affecting my leg then, which was an absolute nightmare because it was so painful. The first one wasn't painful; it was debilitating. The second one was absolutely horrendous pain. Luckily, they sorted that as well. So it's just recovering from both, which is tough.
And, like I always say, you don't have to say anything you don't want to say, but like, what was I know you had some cancer related operations too.
Um, Most bizarre place you could ever imagine to get cancer on my eyeball, which was never knew you could even get that. I mean, I've been to the doctors 3 or 4 years before because there was something weird on my eye and it didn't look good. They basically told me it was nothing to worry about, and that was it. So I was going for a general optician appointment one day for some new glasses, and the guy looked at my eye and he said, "That doesn't look good. You need to get this checked out." So he made an appointment for me at the eye hospital in Bristol. And they looked at it and they said, you've got cancer in your eye." Just like unbelievable. So they were amazing. They were really quick. They were on it straight away. I think within um, probably a month, 2 months at the most, they done an operation and removed it, and put me on some chemotherapy. I've been back for I think 4 follow-up appointments, and so far so good. It seems all clear. So hopefully that's where we're at. Right, I had
You know,
2 other operations of cancer removal, and on my face and on my leg. Again, so far so good and all is clear, but it's been a hellish like 3 years.
as we mentioned at the beginning of the show too, you're coming back now. You've just done the Power from Hell 40th anniversary tour and stuff. But what is your, and like I said, as we always say on the show, you can go into it as much as you want. But what is your mind like when you're, everything at once, man? Are you just like, how do you push yourself past the like, when you first find this shit out, it's got to fucking depress you. Like, how do you get yourself to where? Obviously, you have to strengthen yourself to do the things you've done to get back. And how is it sitting there watching your band play shows without you and stuff?
Uh, I went to the first maybe 4 shows, 5 shows, and I did find it difficult um, watching the guys without me playing now. Yeah. And of course, everybody was asking why I wasn't playing. You've got to tell everybody the reason. So I decided just to step away. I didn't want to put no pressure on the guys because they were doing a fantastic job of keeping the band alive and keeping the band's name in the public domain. So I just let them get on, and they done an amazing job while I was away. Absolutely amazing. So I'd say they
You were
even
at
took the band to new levels when I wasn't there because they did some great shows, getting such a fantastic reputation.
Well, you were at the show at 2022. Onslaught is put into the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, May 28th, 2022, actually at Maryland Death Fest, which you didn't perform, but you were basically behind the soundboard the whole time, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I came over to obviously accept the award, which was amazing. And yeah, I basically stood at the back behind the soundboard, giving the guy some directions. Not that he needed it very much because he did a fantastic job. So, but yeah, I just went mainly to for that award. It's incredible.
It's awesome. And obviously, you're back now in 2025. We're going to talk about the Origins of Aggression that just came out in May on Reigning Phoenix Music. Now, Phoenix, right? You were hooked up with them because Niels and Jochen worked with AFM.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, really, really, Niels is a really good friend of mine. We've been working together now since 2010, 2011. When he left AFM, we just signed a new contract at AFM, and it was very disappointing when Niels and Jochen left to form a new label. So we were kind of stuck at a label where we had no allies anymore because the label had changed a lot. So I basically said, "Fuck this." I phoned Niels up. I said, "Niels, if we can get away from AFM, will you sign us?" He said, "Yeah, of course." So we done some negotiations with AFM. They were very, very helpful actually, because they were kind of restructuring their label as well, and we didn't really fit in with their plans, and we certainly didn't. They didn't fit in with ours. So, got 3 of them. Signed to Reign in Phoenix immediately. Best decision we've made for a long time.
You guys are first going to do that record, which it's funny. I've heard you talk about this. So you guys' original plan is to basically celebrate the Power from Hell record, and you're thinking about re-recording it. And you had some people, some friends be like, yo, maybe you shouldn't do it exactly like that. Cause you think about like a Slayer's re-recording Haunting the Chapel or something like that. It's kind of like you don't want to, as a fan, you don't want to hear that even as good as it sounds. Did you start realizing it after they were explaining it to you?
Yeah, I think so because the analogy he used, he said, "How would you feel if Sex Pistols re-recorded Nevermind the Bollocks or Discharge re-recorded Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing?" So nah, I wouldn't be very happy, and that kind of made me think then, okay, let's not do this. That's when we came up with the idea to do the influences and just do a general re-records of the first period of Onslaught, you know, just to have all those songs from Thermonuclear right through to In Search of Sanity sonically sound the same with the same band playing, you know, so they got a continuity now, and you can hear the development of Onslaught over the years in the same kind of picture, if you like.
Yeah, you guys also touched on the covers. You know, you guys basically that's your storyboard, right? Of how you guys did 3 discharge covers. You guys did a Killing Joke cover, UK subs, and obviously we talked earlier in the show about the Iron Fist cover from Motörhead from the sound check that night. Um, and you guys did a Black Sabbath War Pig. So obviously, it's been we all know Ozzy just passed away.
Yeah.
Ozzy for you, like, was that I mean, obviously I know you were a big punk fan though, but how important was Ozzy to you?
I love the early Sabbath albums, you know. Even when I was listening to punk music, I was still into Sabbath as well. Those early albums are great. Hence, War Pigs is just like one of the best songs
Yeah.
ever for me, lyrically, and is just so powerful.
What you guys cover on this, obviously.
So we were gonna either do that or Symptom of the Universe, but War Pigs is such a classic, and we used to jam that in rehearsal all the time. And there may have even been one of the songs that Side came along and sang to. I don't know. Quite possibly it could be. But yeah, I mean it was amazing to play that song and hear it as Onslaught playing War Pigs. Yeah, very sad that Ozzy's passed, especially so close to the um the show that they did a couple of weeks back.
Crazy, isn't it, how that worked out?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it's very strange.
it's you guys also brought other guests on this record. You got Jason McMasters you had on there.
Yeah, he's a friend of Jeff's. They've known each other for a long time, so good to get him involved. Did a very cool job.
Yeah, Giles on there from Alcatraz too.
Yeah, yeah, he's our manager as well. So he was Giles appeared on that. Also did a absolutely fantastic job. I think he did some stuff on Free Will Burning with Jason, so it was kind of cool. They got kind of similar voices a little bit.
And when you did this, so obviously this comes out, and you guys have I know stuff going. I think you guys have some shows coming up too. So is there a new record in the works? Because again, I know you like to separate things a little bit. I know this is more of a covers and some re-records and stuff. So, like, what is your plan for the next Onslaught record, and how much material do you have written for it?
Nothing as yet. Gonna give a little breathing space. We got a lot of shows to do. So um, I've got loads and loads of material re-recorded and in my head and written down lyrically and song titles. It's just a case of kind of start to put the jigsaw together now. I think everything's in place. It's just I think I'll sit down when the time is right and start putting all the bits in the right places. You know?
What do you guys have coming up for show wise now for anybody who's listening the next few months?
We're off to Italy tomorrow morning, very early.
Oh shit!
Then we're off to France and Greece, Mexico and Spain, and then we're off to Australia in November for the first time ever.
Nice. Well, man, one of my last questions for you, we usually, you have a hell of a history. We always ask the guys that have a hell of a history this question, but how would you want to be remembered, man? Even with Onslaught and you as a musician.
Um, I'm not the kind of guy to want to be remembered as like amazing guitarist. You know, I just like to be remembered as a band that wrote great songs and it treated people in a great way and had a lot of respect for their fans. You know, that's all I can say is that the demeanor is very aggressive and very dark, but on the flip side, we're just a normal bunch of friendly guys.
Yeah, but where anybody who wants to find anything Onslaught, where can they go to? Merchandise, T-shirts, all the.
Yeah, either our Facebook page or our website, which is www.powerfromhell.com. Razzmatazz merchandise in the UK or our main outlet for merch and stuff. And obviously the Reigning Phoenix live.
Man, well, Nige, man, we cannot thank you enough for giving us your time. I actually didn't know you were hopping on a plane tomorrow morning, because now I feel a little bad.
Yeah,
But
we're playing in Sardinia in Italy. That's the first time ever, so it's, we're kind of looking forward to that one because it's a new place for us.
that's awesome, man. Well, first of all, I wish you the best, man, with everything, and I think it's awesome that you've been pulling through and recovering and you're back on stage and stuff like that. Anything you want to say to the listeners on the way out?
I just massive thank you to all the fans who followed us from day one and beyond. America has been great for this album again. We've charted some cool chart position. Number one, we held number one in the American college radio charts for 3 weeks, holding off some pretty mega bands, so that was a big deal for us. But we just waiting to come back to the States again. Hopefully next year. We've got all our work visas in place, so fingers crossed we'll be coming to see you guys in 2026.
Well, Nige, again, man, we do appreciate you. We're going to say goodbye to you here in a minute here. Everybody else, we're going to play Iron Fist, which we've talked about a few times on this show. Onslaught from the new record on Rising Phoenix Music, Origins of Aggression, came out in 2025. Nige, any last words?
Thank you, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'm amazed at your knowledge. It's incredible.
I appreciate it, man. And we'll say goodbye to you in a minute. Everybody else, this is Onslaught with Iron Fist from Origins of Aggression. Came out on Reigning Phoenix Music, 2025. We'll be back on the morgue with me and Ed after this track. See you later, Nige.
See you later, guys. Thank you.
Let's go!
Onslaught with Iron Fist off the 2025 album Origins of Aggression. And we want to thank Nige Rockett for hanging out with us and wish him the best on tour. Ed, another one in the books, episode 101. How are you doing, man?
I am fantastic. And I'm glad we got through episode 101 because now it's just a normal thing. Now we
Back
can't
on the
even
tracks.
now we're just starting at 1. Now we're at
Yep.
number 2.
You know, and we are gonna get the hell out of here tonight, but we do have a question for you, Ed, that someone sent in. And this question more applies to you because obviously you're also a bass player, not only a vocalist. This comes from Troy out of San Jose. Greetings to the morgue. I listen every week and really enjoy the in-depth band history you guys cover with your guests. Ed, I've heard you mention dark glass products. I feel that it has become a trend now in the metal world to use them. So I've been trying other options. I am a fan of the MXR M89 overdrive pedal. Would you have any recommendations outside of dark glass that you have used? Thanks, and looking forward to the next episode. That's Troy from San Jose.
Huh. Well, Troy, leading up to me using dark glass, Tony will probably collaborate with me on this one. I've been through about 500 pedals. I've played every version of muff and rap pedals and
Ed's Music
distortion
Emporium.
pedals. Ed's Music Emporium, man. I've played so many different gears. I had personally used the MXR M80. I don't know if that was the one you're referring to. It's a great pedal. I don't like the overdrive on it, but the clean section with the EQ is awesome. So I did use that as a kind of a preamp pedal. I've used a lot of Tech 21 products, which the Sans amp. I just had a pedal that I recently just sold that Frank Bello made for Tech 21, and was a killer pedal. It just didn't have the tone I like. I use dark glass not because it's trendy. Um, to be honest with you, before Alex Webster and Terry Butler and all those dudes were playing dark glass, I had mine long before those guys. I had the first B3K pedal. So I've been using dark glass since before it was trendy, kind of like getting tattoos and piercings. You know, I I had it long before, and the only reason I use it is because it has the ability to get you tones that other pedals can't. That's the only reason I use it. And the new anagram pedal that they came out with, while it's expensive, it's the last thing you'll ever need. And it's got more than just dark glass in there. It's got amps that you can overdrive. It's got everything in one unit, and that's what I like personally. But I would try. I would go to YouTube. I would listen to some people who make videos and go through pedal demos and see if anything catches your ear, because that's what I did. That's how I do it. If something sounds decent and I think I can make it sound good, that's what I'll try it. Worst case, I sell it. As you know, I've been
It
through a
goes
ton
back
of
to the
pedals, man.
Emporium. Yeah. And so Troy, we thank you for writing us. There's your question. Ed, so we have what? So we have Marcus from Disaster next week. We have Alessio from Violenter out of Italy the week after that. Then who knows? You never know what pops up on this show. Shit happens. Like I think of like 7 days ago, we had nothing planned.
Yep, I'm
And now
working
there's
on
a bunch of
somebody.
stuff in the works.
So yeah, definitely. It's feast or famine. Every time we talk about doing our own show, 10 people pop up to do shows. So
Dude, I think we haven't done a show without a guest since like maybe 68 or something like that.
yeah,
I could be wrong, but
it's been a long time that I could. I was trying to think of when the other day when we were talking about it, and I'm like, I can't
after Jeff
remember.
Manis, I think that was the last
I think
time.
we did one show where it was just me and you, and then that was it. And we've had guests ever since, which I'm not complaining. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we have some more stuff that we're working on too that we won't announce yet because nothing's written in stone. But Ed has some stuff out there we'll be pulling in pretty soon, guest wise. So again, Marcus from Disaster next week. So you go back and the Terry Butler episode from last week, we definitely recommend. So, Ed, I mean, unless you have anything else, I say we call it a day, another episode.
I need to go crawl on my coffin, so I'm good.
Take care of yourself. We don't want to be reading your name in the beginning of the show.
Joe Hubar would love that.
Yeah, you know, it's we definitely don't want that. And we want to again thank Nige Rockett for hanging out tonight, and all of our listeners. As always, you know, we appreciate everybody who listens. We appreciate you guys contacting us and everything that you guys do. And you know, keep an eye on the Instagram page. Tampa Morgue Instagram is the place to keep an eye on if you want to find out what's going on next. Usually, so Ed, unless you have anything, let's get the hell out of here.
Let's do it.
Cool. So everyone, have a good night. We'll be back next week with Marcus from Disaster on the Tampa Morgue. Peace.
See ya.
This is King Fally from Deceased, and you just listened to another episode of the Tampa Morgue. Tune in next week and stay fucking dead.